really exciting.
You're anti-trans.
Here we go. Skylar Bogart. There we go. Skylar Bogart. That's who this person is. She and Taftaj seem okay in this. I haven't heard Kelly say anything weird. It's mostly Brianna Wu who's a bit of a concern, shall we say. And it's her thing. She's like the unpopular kid who owns the football in the neighborhood. So all the other kids have to include the unpopular kid, even though they're kind of annoying. That's Brianna Wu. Anyway, so yeah, dollcast. I'm going to say dollcast constantly. It's just going to happen. Is Colin Wright the Antichrist? Colin Wright is a biologist marrying the shrimp. I'm trying to find some trans stuff. Why is he not talking about trans, like, at all? Like, woke left, automatophilia, fucking hell. That's quite a good one, actually. I should use that. But yeah, Colin Wright, you probably see what he's about. Evidence-based kind of shit, you know? But yeah, it's interesting to me. Am I going to watch the trigonometry interview? I watched the first one. I didn't watch the second one. To be honest, I might do, but I'm not sure what there is to get from those kind of things, if you get me. But I probably will at some point. But yeah, I mean, so she was shitting on Ray Alex Williams, like, before the stream before this one, calling him like Ray GP and shit like that. And she told me that he invalidates trans women, but gay porn. I'm literally not bothering to make it sound like Gabe Horn anymore. Gabe Horn anymore. But yeah, they have this guy on like a week later after shitting on someone else, which is a bit shit. But hey, I want to see how they deal with someone like this, because she is right in one sense. There's conversations happening between two sides. The stream was taken down because of the topic. No, it shouldn't have been. My OBS fucked up. Oh, hi, Ozyar. We're going to watch Dollcast. They have a biologist on called Colin Wright, who is very gender critical, doesn't really believe in like trans and stuff like that. And Brianna Wu, who runs this podcast, is all like, you know, we need more conversations. So I want to see how he deals with her doctrine, because she's very much still a TRA. She just pretends not to be. What was I going to do? I can't remember. Let's start playing, I guess. Yeah, it kind of felt at points that she was trying to make it her like little Mean Girls Club type thing. But the rest of them weren't really playing ball, which I respect them for, to be honest. Anyway, so Dollcast versus Colin Wright. Let's have a look.
And now we have a very special guest joining us here, Colin Wright, the writer of Reality's Last Stand. He's an evolutionary biologist and writer of Reality's Last Stand, where he examines issues at the intersection of biology and society. With his scientific background, Colin brings a
If I raise the larynx, hang on, it's easier for me if I hear them speak first and then do an impression that way.
Perspective rooted in biology, often challenging popular narratives around identity and science. Colin, welcome to the show.
I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
So, Colin, you know, we must have had 5 or 6 team meetings getting ready for this, maybe 5 or 6. We talked a lot about this. And, you know, I guess I want to be really honest with you. I feel, because it's like, I know we've talked about this. I feel so strongly that conversations with people, I don't want to say on the other side, but
I've had a long history with Wu. Might have had DMCA from her back in 14, 16. Could have been a troll. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm in Dollcast. Look. Okay, if I push the pitch up slightly, is this still Brianna Wu, or are we going into Jeffrey Marsh territory? I don't
but conversations with people that have questions or a different idea about policy, it is so necessary. Like this war where we are just screaming at each other and each side has its extremists, it's not serving the public policy conversation.
But insulting random AGPs, I'm sure is, sure.
Risk, I think, today is,
2.2 AGPs and 1.8 HSTS. Well, Brianna is a 1 AGP. I think Taftaj is pretty much an AGP. We had 5 or 6 meetings. There were 2, the others were TM. She just comes out with stuff. I don't get it, Kermit. Oh, thank you, Gay Porn. I tend to get her and Jeffrey Marsh mixed up a lot, but they actually just sound really similar.
Having someone like you on the show, if we just sit here the whole time and find the areas where we agree on, I really worry that's going to come off as like a complete rubber stamp on your entire political project. Where
you gotta make sure your people still know that you're anti this kind of thing, right? There are more filters over John than a pack of. Oh my god, that's funny.
I don't agree with you on everything. And, I also don't want to sit here and have like a Destiny style debate with you. So does that make sense?
Oh, the link is invalid. I can sort that. It's always invalid for some reason. I don't know how I time it because it refreshes every week or something like that. Ooh. Yeah, I probably copy this fucking all the time. Ooh. Bear with me. Oh, it's that one. All right, there's a link in chat now, and I'll update it. Oh, okay, fair enough. It's updated anyway, so I guess if anyone wants to join and troll me. I could say Gabe only. Yeah, but which Gabe am I talking about? There could be everyone that's watching that isn't in chat, they could all be called Gabe and it could get really confusing. I'm just covering all bases, you know what I'm saying? Jeffrey is the dark Brianna. To be honest, that's because we don't know that Brianna hasn't done anything worse than Jeffrey. It could be the other way around. But I don't know. Yeah, I thought, listen, she could definitely take density in a debate. I don't know why she's pussying out off the bat, you know?
Steve, what kind of conversation were you thinking we should have today?
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. I mean, I'm totally happy to talk about areas of overlap where we agree. I think those are often good places to, start to ground us to make sure that, we're not just sworn enemies. We have a lot of overlap in what we think should be done, how things are. And yeah, it's also fun to explore the differences. I mean, that's what I like the best. I used to sort of be in these clubs when I was in.
Oh, it ruins the effect when it does the close up. I was trying to be one of the girls
in college, like these atheist clubs.
I almost said that with a straight face.
And it was so boring to me because all we did is talk about the things we agreed on. It was just like, yeah, we're all atheists. We don't agree that God exists and all this stuff.
Can't risk a density bridge burn. True. Listen, he'll do it for you anyway, so it's fine.
And it's just like, what's the point of having a meeting of a bunch of people who just to talk about things we already agree on? So I always liked exploring the areas like, okay, we all agree on this one thing. Well, what are the things we disagree on? And
listen, one thing I will say, they've got 379 subscribers. He should be on the fucking Mary Chew. I'm just saying. By the way, everyone is responsible for making sure I always have more subscribers than dollcast. That's all I care about. Is just staying ahead of dollcast. If they ever take over me, I'm just gonna delete my entire internet presence.
Now that we know, coming from a shared sort of place, we can explore those without offending people and things like that. So I think a little bit of both. Yeah, we need to have the overlap and then show where we disagree.
So my Twitter, I assume you follow Sky as well, and Taff and Kelly. Where, in your view?
I'm surprised she brings up her Twitter, considering how she acts on it. If I acted that way, I'd be embarrassed. I'd never mention it. It's bad enough the way I do act on Twitter, and for the most part, I've not been on it very much recently.
Do you think you kind of agree with our political project? Where do you perceive the overlap as being?
I'm not too familiar with the other people as much as I am with you, Brianna. I see your stuff all the time in my feed. And I think where I agree with you most, the reason I find myself constantly hitting a like.
That's true. I don't know, people like that, there's probably specific things I'd love to get into. Pitch ideas, I've got plenty of them. I'm sure at least one or two of them aren't stupid as fuck.
On your posts is because you seem to be calling out a more of like an ideological turn that a lot of
Beside that point was more just to brag about being bigger than Brianna Wu on YouTube.
The trans movement has made in the last decade or so, that has sort of expanded what it means to be trans into just oblivion, where like it's just encompassing common sex nonconformity.
This will be interesting because I'm pretty sure Brianna still believes in like some of the woo-woo shit, no pun intended. You know, she thinks the difference between her and someone like Ray is that she has a woman inside her. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're born male, where exactly is the woman inside you? You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting what she says here, and I'll have to just kind of decide whether I think she's being very honest or not.
And things like that. The existence of non-binary as a category, I think, reveals the ideological shift. I think that really shows sort of that it is an ideological thing. It's not just like sort of the older, what we used to refer to as transsexuals, who are people who are understand their sex and who are just saying like, I'm really distressed and I want to take steps to appear as the opposite sex because this helps me move through the world comfortably. And that's something I have no issue with. Whereas now we have sort of this ideological shift that goes into a lot of pseudoscience about the sex, whether it's even real, whether it's...
Speaking of ideological, she pushes a lot of the same, like, you have to treat trans kids, otherwise they'll kill themselves. Our vestigial nipples are the woman inside. Okay, fair enough. Maybe detransitioners, maybe male to female detransitioners don't have nipples, and that's the difference, really. I don't know. I would ask Ray Alex Williams to get his nipples out, but I don't think that would go over well. And I don't know why else I'd want to see them. maybe we'll leave that theory. I don't know.
Binary or spectrum, brain sex versus, sex of different body parts and brain body mismatches. So I think that's where I kind of saw things going, whether it's binary or spectrum, brain about the sex, whether it's even real, whether it's binary or spectrum.
Yeah, I think he's shooting down true trans, which I used to believe in, like true trans. I don't anymore. Point is, the pun is much funnier than trans men to say they have a man inside them. True. Brain sex versus, sex of different body parts and brain body mismatches. So I think that's where I kind of... She reacted to that, like brain body mismatches. Is that her thing? Is that what she believes in? She thinks that somehow there's a woman inside of her. There's a very mystical kind of belief, right? But woo are you? Woo woo ooh woo. Nice.
Sex of different body parts and brain body mismatches. So I think that's where I kind of...
Brain body mismatches. She likes size there. Is that her thing? Is he attacking her thing right now?
Saw things going wrong with the ideological shift.
So I just want to pause and make sure trans people can hear this. I want to repeat back what I just heard because I see you attacked on this so often. Yeah. So am I correct to understand that your position is someone like me who had clinical gender dysphoria, and as an adult, I went to a doctor. I got certified, and I went down a medical pathway to change my gender. You know what I mean, to live as a woman, right? To get HRT, to blend, to live in a way that felt authentic to me. Am I correct to understand you support that? You think that is helpful? Yeah,
but do you support me though? I love it. We're already making it about Brianna instead of talking about it in abstract. I think this is actually a really toxic trait. Like when people are arguing about a concept and you've got this one person who always wants to make it about themselves. It's like when people like trauma dump on me. I do debates occasionally, and like there was at least one where someone like trauma dumps all over me, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that isn't gonna make me sound like an asshole because you're talking about like your own personal trauma. Like I don't like talking about that kind of stuff, especially in debates, but hey.
Is that the gist of it?
Absolutely. I think individuals should have the right to be able to do that when they're adults and can make these decisions. And
you know what his favorite game is? Blinks the Time Cat. Sorry, that was terrible. I'll see myself out.
And they know who they are. They tend to know what's best for them.
Do you know what his favorite band is?
Especially if they're dealing with doctors who can walk them through this. As long as I think...
Blink 182. I'll stop. I'm so sorry.
There should be some medical safeguarding. I don't think it should just be like, I want to just get these things, and then it's just it's like, well, here you go. And by the way, they're all covered by insurance, and there should be some level of safeguarding to make sure that people aren't going to regret what they're doing. That's why I kind of criticize the gender affirming framework, because it's really just no safeguarding. I think if we could shift back to how things were, where there it was a process, and I think it should be a process. But I'm not against anyone doing these things, either if it's a medical process, having a really robust assessment, or if people want to pay out of pocket for things, I'm totally fine with people pursuing all sort of cosmetic changes.
What they bring is fair game to debate. That's fair enough.
Just to their bodies that I have no problem with. To me, my main focus is on
to be honest, like the one time it happened, I kind of made a point of saying I don't really know what to say to that's not going to make me sound like an asshole, because I'd rather people didn't do it if possible. It's very awkward. Like, I don't know, whenever I've watched other debates from other people and one of them starts trauma dumping, it's just the most awkward shit ever. And I just don't want to deal with it. I'd rather point it out constantly until people get the message. But, if someone's really going to use that kind of shit like that, then maybe I shouldn't care so much, Blinking Morse code, it just says kill me. Oh my God. We were talking to Amaya in chat. She's actually a WPATH accredited clinician, therapist of some kind. And she's like friends with Brianna. But she seems cool with me slagging people off, so it's fine. To be fair, I try and give reasons for it. It's not just, I don't like that person, or that person's ugly, or whatever.
On children, mainly because of the severity of the changes that we're talking about. But
I'll let other people go, but I just want to say really quickly, this is where I really, really agree with you. And I think my co-hosts do as well, because I strongly believe that medical safeguarding, I think the community has framed all of that as being oppression. And I don't think that that's true. I think this is really apparent.
Oh yeah, NacTravy82, you're right. There's been no mention of Gamergate. Well, Gamergate back in, was it 1992 or 1994? It couldn't have been 1993, because that was when I met this guy called, was it Paul or was it John? I'm not sure. Anyway. Yeah, WPATH is insane, but hey, it's a long process trying to show the world what's going on. And countries are slowly changing. Hopefully the US is going to be the next one, because they brought Trump back. So
in the AGP discussion, I'm saying this not like any judgment of any.
Richiku, yes. Skylar talked right at the very start, and Colin Wright has spoken.
Anyone with that, but not every single person with autosexuality needs to transition and is going to be served with that. I think they deserve a healthcare system where they will be able to sit down with a therapist that actually understands these.
Yeah, but should they be able to talk about their ideas? What happens if one of them thinks that you're an AGP? Does that mean you should then shit on them on your podcast?
Concepts, and can walk them through that and explore other things to find out if maybe there are things less extreme that would help them have a good life and alleviate that dysphoria. I think that avoiding the political problem of Chloe Coles coming along, I think that's very much in the trans public interest. So I think
avoiding the problem of Chloe Cole. Do I think Chloe Cole's a grifter? I have no idea.
Right there, we've got a lot of overlap.
No, Colin, I don't know if you remember me. I imagine you probably don't. I'm sure you have
at GenSpec. We met each other at GenSpec, right?
You do? Oh,
okay,
yes, we did.
Right. Yes.
I listened to your speech there, or your presentation.
Oh, a fellow Nazi. That's a joke. Hi, Newman Core. Oh, thank you so much.
And about the value of biology when it comes to understanding how to shape law and all of these various things. They're just the fundamentals about human understanding. And I came up to you and thanked you for it, because I had no idea how pervasive it was that at universities, you weren't even being allowed to talk openly about these concepts of just basic biology.
Yeah, but it's the same if you're friends with trans people. Maybe you've got a local space and they pretty much tell all the trans locally what to think. Like in my town, although thankfully they've fucked off in the last couple of years because, I don't know, queer people aren't good at business or something.
at least from my point of view.
Yeah.
And it's like, I am so against that freedom. Like whenever I see that restriction of speech in an environment like academia, where we should be inviting contradictory opinions, that's how you reach truth.
There is a detrans minor, Luca, whose first trans intervention was a double mastectomy even before blockers or hormone. That's crazy. I've never heard of it being done that way, but I don't know. At the same time, I'm not surprised. I mean, it kind of seems like there was no real safeguarding at all in like the American system, and people were just getting fucking zipped fucking through sometimes.
How you get closer to understanding the opposite of your side. It brings me back to John Stuart Mill, who makes that statement about one who only knows their side knows
I basically agree with what she's saying.
Little of that. And I just think,
or rather projecting. She talks quite loud. I don't know if it's I don't know why. Does she have like, I'm sure she probably does like other video content. I wonder if she always like shout at the microphone or if it's just for this.
Again, of like, that is like one of my core guiding principles. And it's like, I think that's where I see a lot of red flags with the trans ideology stuff kind of going off the rails, is exactly when you start seeing that protection of, oh, we can't have any discussion on this. It's scary. It's not going to help. It's going to, attack our own side. And so that was really eye-opening to me when you shared that at the GenSpec conference. And I was grateful that at least, we're gaining some traction in the discussions from that perspective. And my hope is that we'll see more.
You have an affirmation model. These things are bound to happen. Yep. Listen, I'm not for all that shit anyway. Like, I guess it was all kind of affirmation even when I was transitioning, but it was just so much less of a big deal in like 2015 compared to now. Now it's just fucking everywhere. Privilege of the kids of rich liberal Americans is a fast track to mutilation. True. And yeah, that's a good point. Like, the poorer kids, like, they might not get it very quickly. It's like it's the rich kids, they get fast tracked and then they realize they made a mistake like 4 years later and they can't breastfeed their kids. It kind of sucks, Maybe we shouldn't be just shoving it through like that. But then, hey, why are they doing that? Because it's filling their pockets. It's filling their fucking pockets, isn't it?
Or of a overlap or a mutuality in having those like conversations.
Oh, she has to cook in her head first, and then she's going to be the most base one here. I can feel it. I don't know why I can feel it. I just can. It's going to be Kelly, Taftaj, Skylar, and then Brianna, way further at the bottom.
Between, your perspective or like the perspective of biology, and then seeing like where that can intersect, people that maybe have an experience that seems a little bit, contradictory, or seems, it seems to put it at odds.
I'm a guest. Can't you tell? We're all in. I know I'm paused and no one else is. Or the other way around. Brianna Wu loves me.
With some of those basic tenets.
Yeah. I mean, my main project has been trying to clarify the biology of sex on this issue, because that's what kind of got me out of my lab and posting on Twitter in the first place, is people saying wrong things about sex. And I feel like if we could all just get to a point where, as long as we're making...
The ContraPoints told me that all trans people actually believe in biology and sex and everything. Was she lying? Oh, hi, get some 420. Hey, maybe we'll get some insights from Dollcast here. It sounds very intellectual from what I can tell. Dollcast.
Sane noises about what the biology is. Then we can actually talk about, other aspects of transitioning and things like that. I just view a lot of what's happening.
Yeah, me and Brianna fell out since then. So like, she cropped me out. It's not very fair, and I will be suing, but
now is people basing transitioning on these, frankly, pseudoscientific ideas of, literally being able to change your sex through certain things. And I think a lot of people, especially, younger people, I know, talking to Chloe Cole and stuff, like they literally thought in their mind that they could change their sex literally. And so I just think this sort of being misinformed is where I
Dollcast.
Trying to focus my efforts.
But Colin, this is where I think my political project differs from yours, respectfully, because and this is a...
Yes, please tell me about your political project. I want to know everything, Brianna.
This is a critique I have
Oh, hi, Eartapoon 09. I'm so sorry.
I've thought about this so much this week that I understand. Like, I have no delusions. I am a natal male that has
No delusions. Has she ever said natal male before? Because she'll call herself a woman.
taken a course of like alterations to my body to appear female when I'm in public. I have no illusions about that. But what
I do not trust that at all. By the way. just so we're all clear, she does not like me very much. D-hole cast. Yeah, there you go. Angelina Jolie. I can't remember much about, because didn't she have like cancer or pre-cancer or something? Thanksgiving. Just like every Thanksgiving for 20 years, I am unwelcome to celebrate with my family because I am trans. Like, we don't have both sides of the story though, do we? Here's a political project to dehumanize and degrade trans people, excluding us from society. This is what it results in. Broken. Alright, if it's gonna keep fucking me around, I'm just gonna fucking not bother. But hopefully fucking this will work. I don't know. Oh, hey Sam. Yeah, I was already online, but it kept disconnecting me. So we've been watching Dollcast in installments so far. The internet is absolutely fine. It's just OBS is fucking me around. I have the internet everywhere else, and I can watch my own stream until it crashes. So it's not the internet, it's OBS doing something. I've reconnected with Restream because that's what I used to stream with. So let's see, I guess. It's annoying. The truth too much for the tech. This always never happens as well. Like, Jesus Christ. Yes, Brianna was telling a different version of her usual spiel because Colin Wright is here. I think it was. Let's just keep going. Fucking hell. I think not being good at computer stuff is a requirement for being a trans person. Definitely not. A lot of people think that's the case, but no. All right. I don't know. People can come back if they don't. Who is the ringleader of the dollcast? Brianna Wu. That's why she's like 30 years older than the rest of them combined. What happened? What happened is my thing crapped out. Our friend Brian. No, it's John. Wait, I didn't say that. That was someone else. Anyway, let's just keep fucking going. This is driving me mad.
Because and this is a critique I have of you. I've thought about this so much this week that
especially younger people. I know, talking to Chloe Cole and stuff, like they literally thought in their mind that they could change their sex literally. And
that was Brianna Wu coming after me. Is that what it is? Yeah. Oh well. Who is Brianna Wu? She's top left. She's one of those rich people who is trans and inserts herself into everything, even though no one really likes her very much. I don't know. I blame these crashes that you don't share the stream links. But people should have the links. I mean, it's always the same one. Like, just go on my YouTube and it's there. I don't know. Maybe I should. I don't know. People find it. Who is that guy? Colin Wright. This is the video. So Colin Wright is on Dollcast, which is for trans people, including Brianna Wu, talking about trans stuff. Having more conversations, So many conversations. You're not convinced that Brianna Wu is rich. Her parents are rich. Her husband is rich. She's like loaded. She's got like 4 Porsches or something. She doesn't have to be a fraud. That's the thing. She can fuck up as much as she wants and make as much of a fool of herself as she wants. She has a fucking loaded fucking husband. She has rich parents. Didn't they buy her a house so that she could do her game designer thing? And she was talking about like fucking living off rice and beans and shit like that when they made fucking Revolution 60 or whatever. Nah, she's like, I don't know. I'm relatively privileged. Like, my family does fine, and they've had to help me out here and there. But like, not to that extent,
So I just think this sort of being misinformed is where I'm trying to focus my efforts.
But Colin, this is where I think my political project differs from yours, respectfully, because and this is a critique I have of you. I've thought about this so much this week that I understand. Like, I have no delusions. I am a natal male that has taken a course of.
I do not believe this at all. I've never heard her call herself a natal male. Hang on, I left a thing. Got some victim shit. Shits on Elon Musk. I'm sure that's helping trans people in any way, shape, or form. Is this really the post to demand tribute to your cult leader?
I love you, Mary.
Oh, thank you so much, Azia.
For the Omnissiah. Bless the OBS spirit.
Thank you for the 650 natal male. Natal means how you were born. So you're a native female, and I'm a natal male. That's what it means. I've never heard her call herself like a male. She calls herself a woman, like all the time. I have no delusions I can think of what, this does not sound like Brianna Wu at all, but then she never sounds like Brianna Wu. She flipped out at the heterodox hosts because they believe that trans women are male. Ugh, yeah. It's not consistent.
You're anti-trans.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Numina, for becoming anti-trans. And thank you, Grief Foundation. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm not American, but happy Thanksgiving.
Like, alterations to my body to appear female when I'm in public.
Brianna put her application to have a birth certificate changed back. Is that true? That's crazy. Brianna Wu jump scare. Oh, you've got actual tweets. Holy shit. Many women, including myself. 2021. That's fine. I'll keep checking.
I have no illusions about that. But
no illusions at all. Potato Mary. I'm going to start calling him that. Yeah, she's peering over. Hang on. There we go. She's just peeking through in the corner. WPUK. What is that? That's not like white pride or white power, is it? Let me just have a look. Woman is social role I inhabit. 28th of October. Ooh, that's very recent. Oh yeah, legally detransit. Yeah, because they all think that they're going to be detransitioned forcefully. That's why they're fleeing the country. But Brianna Wu is going to be okay. Mu Deng Meh. What's WPUK? I just want to find out. Oh, Woman's Place UK. Oh, wow. Fair enough. Shit. To me, all right, so this tweet. To me, woman is the social role I inhabit. I think that's fairly insulting to suggest woman is just biological reality, as if female is just a uterus. 28th of October, 2024. Oof. That's not good. That isn't good at all.
I think the gender critical conversation, the gender critical crowd does, is I think they take that simple reality, which I actually don't.
Gender critical is a cult, an internet cult. Gamergate? Was Gamergate a cult? There are other tweets calling herself a male. Fair enough. She doesn't, at the very least, doesn't consistently call herself a male. Wait, you're a man, I'm a trans woman, no more and no less. Oof. Yeah, she's not very consistent. The only consistency is her inconsistencies. Fair enough. Jesus Christ.
I think as many people are confused about as you do. I disagree that most people think this. And I think you hyper-focus on one area of this to make a whole host of arguments. And let's also not pretend that they don't use.
I don't see why hyper-focusing is an argument. If you're particularly interested in a specific topic, then I don't see what the problem with that is. I don't think anyone needs to justify their interest either. Like, why do you care, bro? Like, what is it your concern what I care about, you know?
Use that fact to talk about us and frame us as though we're these hostile rapist invaders trying to take over women.
People don't say, who says that? Like, some of the crazy people maybe, but I don't know. I would love to see Mr. Mano talk about, has he ever done it actually? Because I can imagine like Mr. Mano fucking ripping her to shreds. It's not like she hasn't been ripped to shreds by fucking every community on the internet, you know? Which one's I'll think about that while I'm Yeah, we got Colin Wright. Like a cervix. Oh, we don't have Brianna Wu. I reckon I want to see Mr. Mano talk about Brianna Wu. I think that would be amazing. Oh my god. Alexa reacts to Jeffrey Marsh, fucking hell. I think a few people that commented on my Mr. Mano video probably potentially thought I disagreed with him more than I did, or that I'm against him or don't like him or something, and that's not really it. Including the string male. Ah, okay, right.
And I think if you're like taking one scientific point and saying this is the only scientific point, well, I could do that right back to you. In fact, trans people do this all the time. What they'll say is, look, we've got these self-reported studies over here that show that, transition helps alleviate gender dysphoria. And you can show that all day long. And the science is very, very clear on this, that this will give someone, like, at least in the short term, a self-reported answer on the survey. Yeah. I could come back to that.
Yeah, but the science isn't clear straight away because it's self-reported. You're getting, like, what is it? Testimonial evidence. So it's, is the science clear? It kind of seems like one side is a lot stronger on the science than the other. Alan Joyce, fair enough. Yeah, I don't think Menno does debates. He'd be making a video, if anything. And I mean, he mentioned Brianna Wu a bunch in his video. But I haven't seen him done a proper, like, takedown. I don't know. It'd be interesting. I think he would, like, rip it to shreds, but hey.
And say, what? You want to deny that this science is real? You want to pretend this doesn't exist? How dare you? I just want to be here and have a scientific conversation.
I don't think it works the same both ways. Because there's so many problems. And if you're going to say that trans improves people's lives, has good effects, whatever, isn't the onus on you to show the science to show that?
I can show you research all day long that shows if you call a trans woman he and don't affirm her, that this is psychologically damaging. Why are you trying to pursue a false scientific agenda? So I think, like, the science, there's a broad array of facts that as public policy professionals, we have to look at, not just this one thing. And I also think it's not the entire point. The point is not, are trans women biological women? That's not the question. It's, do trans women deserve dignity and access to the public commons?
Oh my god, this is literally the ContraPoints video. What the fuck? She's lifted this from ContraPoints. I want to look for it, but I don't remember the... It's a long fucking video. I didn't even watch all of it. This whole... We should be talking about whether trans women are women. We should be talking about, like, the political whatever... Like, this is word for word, I swear to God. The J.K. Rowling video. The main debate I remember of Brianna Wu's is Brianna Wu debating someone called Queeman and coming off extremely slimy and annoying and muting him constantly, which at least it was entertaining listening to him spurg out every time he got muted. But, you know, I say spurg out, it's understandable. I would find her insanely fucking difficult to talk to. She's just so fucking annoying and only lets you speak when she chooses.
Women deserve dignity and access to the public commons.
Yeah, listen, I can't be bothered to look, even though it's literally being shown right here. But this seems like it's lifted word for word from that ContraPoints video. And that ContraPoints J.K. Rowling video actually sucks. It's not good. It's a bad video.
Because so much of the public policy being argued, I have to be honest, is so shockingly similar to the segregationist policies I saw.
Oh, don't.
advocated by elected officials.
Segregationist policies
In Mississippi in the 90s when I was growing up.
I guess he's talking about fucking, I guess. What was I trying to say?
By elected officials.
We're talking about like black people here, to be clear, right? Segregation in the 30s? Oh, thank you, Paggy. That's true dedication. I appreciate that. Segregation in the 90s, sorry, in Mississippi? I guess it would be. But we're conflating issues. Just because someone says something that kind of resembles something that someone else said, that doesn't mean those two people have the exact same position. That's retarded. And the only reason you make that point is because you're looking for a way to shut that person up. Like, when you say something like, fuck. My brain is terrible today. When you say something like, oh, that sounds like something a Nazi would say, you're doing it because you want to shut people up. That vegan teacher's daughter, Jesus Christ, I can only imagine. Gross.
Officials in Mississippi in the 90s when I was growing up. So I think like I'm
non-point. Lifted the previous point from a ContraPoints video. You can't really tell people what question they should be asking because what a person is going to ask is what they're going to ask, ultimately. It doesn't matter how people choose to frame it, that's how they're going to frame it. And it's not like trans people are generally framing it that way either. No, they're saying, I am a woman. I mean, I don't know. Like, she's tied herself in knots already. And it's the same stock shit that we bring out that doesn't work. And we just should stop.
Entirely happy to cede the scientific argument. What I want to get to is the public policy discussion, which is where I think it's
Cede the scientific argument, fair enough, but you're still telling people what they should say and what they should do because you might be hurting trans people.
Really important.
Yeah, I think that's important. I tend to focus on the biological aspect mainly because I think that
having seen it now, yeah.
It is sort of used as a premise for, everything seems to flow from that initial premise of sort of the sex spectrum and negating the sex binary. But yeah, I do agree that at some point the real discussion is like, well, okay, well, what do we do?
On a previous episode of this, possibly the previous episode, excuse me, she was highlighting the differences between herself and Ray Alex Williams, who are both natal males, who are both born male, and the difference being that she has a woman inside her and Ray doesn't. So does she believe this? Is she just saying this because Colin's here? I don't know. Sam has pointed out correctly that she's called herself both things. So it kind of seems like she just says whatever's best at the time. And it's difficult to feel there's a through line, you know what I mean? Marriage tension very high. Wow. Amazing.
Do about it in public policy and things like that. That's where the sort of rubber meets the road. And this is where I like to distinguish between, biological sex, and clearly sex is also a legal category that we've placed around it. And so, how do these, how do we, correlate biological sex?
Oh, which Jammy Dodger vid do you mean? It's a woman inside her, poor gal. Yeah, usually it's supposed to be the other way around, typically, but hey.
To legal sex, and maybe things like what counts as being a woman or a female for sake of sport. And I'm not necessarily under the impression that they should all be the same, even if there should be massive overlap between them all. I think, there are interesting things around the edges of where we can say, where can exceptions be made? And I think those are areas we should talk about potentially. And I'm not going to claim I have all of the answers to, and just like here's a perfect thing. I think sometimes we have to sort of deal with a situation that's sort of like the best, the least bad out situation, because I don't think there's necessarily a silver bullet solution to a lot of things, but I think some solutions or proposed solutions are better or worse than others. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about any of those things for sure.
I want to let my other co-hosts speak.
Well, yeah, this is something that I talked about before.
I like how before any of them talk, She has to say so. It's like she's giving them permission. Who is this guy, Colin Wright?
Before you got in here. But my biggest worry
Here's the video. I'm going to leave this here for a sec and then just scroll up again. Is there anyone else wondering?
was that we would end up agreeing on like too much in the discussion, because I am someone who has been like raising flags in the trans community for years about some of the shoddy science around specifically HRT for minors. And so I've been in like heated debates about this. And every time I've been like shut down, totally shut down by the trans community. Yeah. It's very frustrating because I feel like my community, and especially like the Democrats, have sort of decided that they're going to die on this hill. And that the science doesn't even need to be like explored more. Like it's just settled. There's no more debate. And, you know, I don't think that's ultimately a message that's resonating with people. I think that parents really do see these detransitioners and they really do care. That affects them. And then they go and vote. And at the end of the day, I feel like I'm getting like deeply affected by this because people who claim to represent me, you know, in politics, the left, are sort of failing to actually do their job of rigorously exploring what reality is rather than kind of pretending what they'd like it to be. So that's always been a frustration for me. I think at the same time, I think that I can imagine there being...
Again, settled science. They just want to shut down any other ideas. There's only one way to deal with it, and that's to shut down their shit. Every time someone says the science is settled on this is bullshit. And they know it's bullshit.
Opportunities for minors to transition in the same way that, like, you know, I think I have a very similar perspective on adult transition to you. But I think for minors, I think that a huge problem is just the ability to actually conceptualize what they're doing and to properly consent to it. And to the extent that the studies kind of show like null results, there are like outliers within those studies who show positive results. So I think that there's maybe an opportunity for a rigorous gatekeeping process, something where medical professionals who are free from the political bias of, you know, rubber stamping HRT prescriptions are allowed to truly interrogate, like, is this person a good candidate? And I don't know what age that might be, like 16 is something that gets thrown around a lot as far as like when that might be appropriate. That seems like plausible to me. I wonder, you as the expert on all this stuff, the biology, if you think that's possible or if you think it's just too fraught to potentially go down that road.
Yeah, it's really difficult because we can see that the existence of people who are adults and who've transitioned and who are happy and with their transition and remain transitioned for their entire lives. I think a lot of people can say that, like, this person would have probably benefited if they could maybe pass more, if they had been able to transition at a younger age before they got these differences from puberty. I think that is a true statement. But the difficulty is that just because some of these people would have benefited, this sort of sets the stage for people to want to go back and say, like, well, how can we identify these people before puberty at a young age in order so we can make sure that we get those people?
I'm not sure, but you're making me very hungry for some chicken brianna with a side of taffetage.
But the difficulty is that while it's easy to look back in hindsight to say that, like, you know, oh, I'm somebody who would have benefited from this, it's really, really difficult and really, really inaccurate to have a pool of 11, 12-year-olds and be able to predict with really, really high accuracy which ones are going to be those ones that are happy with it through the rest of their lives.
Do you really think so, Colin? Because if you go look at the DSM standards, like, it's been lowered to 2 out of 6 criteria, 2 out of 6, which is just insane to me. And like, if you go,
you only need 2 out of the 6 criteria in the DSM. It's really weird because people will criticize older research because it uses an older model of gender dysphoria, which isn't very different at all. And if you only need 2 things, then that's a complete bullshit. That's a complete bullshit criticism, surely.
read the standards from 1998. We'll put it in the show notes. It was such a higher standard. So I actually think like we do know a lot about what boys that want to be girls look like. Like there are case studies of a very typical transsexual like journey. And I do imagine that if you get the politics out of this, like I do think there's a way to go and do really
get the politics out of this coming from is she a politician? I don't know, whatever the fuck she is.
Good studies and move back to these older standards and stop like someone that has 2 out of 6 criteria. Do not support them transitioning as a minor. If someone's got 6 out of 6 and they're going through a major depressive episode and they have an eating disorder because they're trying to make themselves thin because they're terrified of masculinizing and, they've got suicidal ideation, I think symptomology indicates treatment. And to me, that is a much stronger argument for intervention at that point.
Yeah. I mean, it depends where.
She's against messianic extremist culture. This is exactly what she comes across as on this shit. Oh, hi, Seven. I hope you're good. Wannabe politician. Yeah, I guess. Anyway.
We want to draw a line on, how much bycatch collateral damage are we willing to accept in here? How many kids are we willing to unnecessarily and wrongfully transition that would make them sterile in order to capture all the individuals who
She doesn't want it politicized. Wasn't it her that was into all that reaching out to streamers like with Progressive Victory before she stood down from there? Like, we don't want trans to be politicized so much, but we'll give money to people like Vorsh and Zanderhal who seem to politicize the fuck out of this shit, Jack Jewell. I've watched Jack Jewell. I liked his video going to London Pride. The summer's always fun, I guess. I watch a load of Pride-related stuff without having to go to Pride, which is suitable for me. I hate Pride. So yeah, I watched that. I haven't watched too much else. I interact with him occasionally on Twitter, and he seems all right.
Would receive a benefit, and how much is the harm that's done to those who are done wrongfully? How much is that harm offset by the benefits that is done by those who go through it and ended up happy with it?
And then there's the opposite argument, like how many trans children becoming someone who cannot pass and are going to have really difficult lives. What human cost of that is okay? How many trans children, like I went to rehab, I have no idea how I didn't die from all the
That's a non sequitur.
drugs I took. How many kids with like a major depressive episode that commit suicide, like Leela Alcorn? How many of those kids are we willing to lose? And like, I think some of the framing I find so frustrating is where we always talk about like the cis children that may not get the perfect outcome that they want as the focus. And the trans lives are kind of talked about like they're disposable. And it feels really that may not get the perfect outcome that they want as the focus. And the trans lives are kind of talked about like they're disposable.
How so?
And it feels really
And why is it that to make them not disposable, we have to affirm their trans stuff, even though a bunch of them aren't actually going to be trans?
Humanizing to me, if that makes sense.
Well,
she just talks in these vague terms. I don't know what she even means by that. Like, unless people give examples, it just sounds like more propaganda.
I feel like if anything, at least in the trans.
How many kids kill themselves? 4 out of 15,000 from 2010 to 2021. Yeah, when the government looked into the Tavistock 16 stuff, they concluded that I think it was about 4 or 5 kids had killed themselves in the years before the ban. And then 6 or 7, you know what I mean? After the perfect outcome, their lives are destroyed.
The focus is fully like on the trans kids.
Oh yeah.
And it's like very rare for those detransitioners to even enter into the conversation. I do think within the medical profession, there's a very like natural lean or inclination towards not taking an intervention if you can potentially avoid that. And we're talking about like false positives and false negatives. I mean, if the doctor is going to prescribe HRT, they're taking on like a big responsibility, I think, ethically, for the results of that. And so if you do get these detransitioners, that seems to be really bad in a way that, like, you know, adults, they can take on all of that moral, ethical responsibility, or at least most of it themselves. Yeah. And so with kids, it's
these people discount how fucked your life is if you permanently destroy your sexual function with adulthood. Well, hey, maybe the conversation will go to there. I don't know.
Hugely different environment.
Do you not think like a huge piece of it?
I miss the world where porn stars weren't spokespeople for kids. The thing is, the porn star is the smartest one here, so I don't know.
Might be how some of these therapists that, in my opinion, are extremely underqualified and barely have any experience, borderline don't even have a degree, are able to diagnose these kids with gender dysphoria, when I feel like it should be left up to probably more like psychiatrists and people that have a little more experience.
Yeah, well, I think the main issue is with the gender affirming model of care that is, you know, basically doesn't have these safeguards. It's essentially, you know, if the kid identifies as a certain way, then that's how they identify.
Yeah, like this whole identify thing. This is exactly the kind of thing we need to drill down on, and I hope he does. Like, I want to hear what Brianna Wu has to say about things like gender identity, because I don't know, you can't really trust anything she says because she's like a metronome. By the time you hear one fucking position, it's already gone back to the other one. It's like, Jesus Christ, I have no idea what you think about anything because of that. My Trumper family won't even look at me, let alone attend Thanksgiving in their house. But we're against politicizing this shit. She's at a limit getting harassed. Like, the way she acts on Twitter, it's like, how do you expect? I hear so often, oh, this trans person had to, like, detransition and go back to being male. And then you look into them a bit, and they constantly, like, bait people and say the most crazy stuff on the internet. It's, what do you expect? Oh my God.
There's not really a lot of pushback that can happen with respect to someone making these certain claims. And, you know, we do have an issue in the culture too, because we have, if you look at the medical community, it is, especially in trans medicine, it's filled with gender affirming practitioners. It's also in the...
Dual flame. Supposedly it is safeguarded by psychiatry, but the safeguarding is like people like the APA and WPATH. So basically there isn't any. They just say there is, you know.
The culture, it's in the water, is, you know, to whatever degree it can be called a social contagion, just adopting these trans identities because of the ideological shift that we've experienced. I think I really don't trust the community right now, given the state of the medical field and the state of the culture, to do a really good job assessing.
Yeah, so Callo, the problem is, though, there just aren't many trans people that don't say completely insane shit on a whim. And so whenever you find one that doesn't do that, even if they're like a porn star or something, you get used to being like, okay, if that makes any sense.
Assessing any type of kid to any reliable accuracy who is going to reliably, you know, remain transition for their whole life. And then there's also a philosophical issue of, you know, it's impossible to do like the blind studies on this to know that, like, okay, maybe this one person is transitioned and they remain transitioned and happy through their lives, but you can't see how happy they would have been if, say, they didn't, if they maybe would have desisted, because there is this sort of inertia that a social transition has, puberty blockers has.
Social transition. Someone mentions the 95% thing. Why are the 5 kids who are going to regret it more important than 95% who don't? That's just not just what the data shows. Blah blah blah. Someone's like arguing. You mean they feel defeated and just live in difficulty and homosexual? Like, okay, but like, yeah, that 95 number. I don't know. I'm guessing it comes from Brianna. That study is based on kids who were like, what is it? It's based on kids that were like all socially transitioned, like up to 5 years beforehand. So of course, almost none of them are detransitioning. Of course, none of them are desisting, almost. It's like with the puberty blockers thing, it's meant to be giving people time, but because they're all being affirmed as well, it's not. It's just the start of their transition.
Cross-sex hormones, they kind of lock people in, make it more difficult for people to desist. And so it's hard to control for that, to know that, you know, maybe they would have been happy either way. And, you know, all else being equal, if they would have been happy without transitioning, well, now that at least they have their their fertility in this other scenario too. So it's really difficult. I mean, it's so difficult with kids. That's why my personal view is that we shouldn't be doing puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones to adolescents. And it should be reserved for people who are 18 or older. But they still deserve.
Completely ban it for all, even MTFs, even though they have a much lower issue rate.
I would have it for.
You someone who tried to cut their dick off. Yeah, you hear about them occasionally. People start cutting themselves up because they feel like they're not moving quickly enough. I don't know what the urgency is though. So.
For people who turn 18, and
Really?
even when you're 18, you deserve to have, actual assessments. It shouldn't just be gender affirming.
A total ban. You're for a total ban on this 100%. No exceptions. Parents do not have the right to, they've got a child, major depressive.
What? Parents don't have the right to transition their child because they're difficult and autistic and they saw them play with a Barbie once and this will totally solve all their problems? Oh no. How terrible. I got 4 kilograms of meatballs. Oh, nice. Listening and smoking things does not make meatballs. Fair enough. I like cooking as well.
Episode, suicidal ideation, has been saying they want to be a girl since they're 3. They hit puberty. They're terrified. Their body is becoming like a linebacker. You want a total ban.
Yes, here we go. Emotional argument, not actually really dealing with much of anything, because we don't have data or anything like that suggesting who it is that's going to detransition and who isn't. So it is too much of a guessing game. It is too much of a crapshoot. It's a huge problem. That's why she can't come back with anything real.
In that case.
Well, what about little Timmy who's going to kill himself?
For minors, I don't think the evidence is in there that shows that this is a reliable, will reliably improve their lives. In the long
we've
run.
got Kelly and Taff here today. They seem pretty happy.
Yes, let's get more anecdotes. Let's get more testimonials, because our science isn't full of that at all,
I get what you said because sometimes I think about, if I'm very happy with my transition and where I'm at in life. I don't see myself ever detransitioning, but I'd be lying if I didn't say a piece of me sometimes thinks, wow, if I wasn't given testosterone blockers at 15, would I have grown out of it by the time I was 18? I don't know. Probably not.
Who has time to worry about other people's children? Well, I mean, they're talking about a specific issue, right? It's not about pedophilia. Not little Timmy. The trans subreddit is basically a cult. Yep, there's plenty of cultists in the trans communities.
Not, in my opinion, but how much of that is because I was on those blockers and because I'm on estrogen now and because I'm post-op? I don't know how my mind has been affected because of those things, even though I do feel like I have a very happy, successful life now. So yeah, but it's a catch-22 for me too, because then I also think, well, what if it didn't go away and I still felt that way into my adulthood, and then I would have developed even more and I would have passed less. And unfortunately it just kind of.
She doesn't know that as well. She's just spitballing. There's this thing that older transsexuals and even transsexuals her age do, male to females, they all swear blind that if they'd have started earlier we'll say if they started earlier, especially people like Brianna Wu, that 100% they would be happier, it would have been better, they'd pass better. And she's saying the opposite,
It seems like in this society, the more you pass, the better you're treated, the more respect you get. And even
well, yeah, if you're a woman, the better looking you are, the better you get treated,
Even now, when I feel like I somewhat pass, I feel like I still get treated like shit and judged for how I look. So I can only imagine how much worse it would be if I had to develop more. So it just sucks because I don't really know.
Yeah, she's assuming it would have been worse if she'd have waited longer. We don't know that. Whenever I had that problem with that Max person, he swears blind that he definitely would have been happier if he'd have been on puberty blockers and stuff like that. You don't know this. And it makes me feel like some of these older transsexuals are almost trying to live vicariously through younger ones. It's weird. It's definitely copium, but at least she's thinking somewhat, questioning. Yeah, of course, yeah.
What the answer is, because there's no magical test to tell if you're trans or not. And I really wish there was.
Yeah, most trans people don't want that kind of thing because they don't want to be the one that fails the test and then can't transition because they want to anyway. I mean, really, we should be examining why people want to transition, but I don't think people are generally honest about why they want to transition. So I don't know.
Because I feel like it would like solve so many of these issues.
Yeah, so I don't deny that there's individuals who do benefit in the long term. Like there's an issue with pointing to individuals and saying, well, what about this person? You would
Carl Max, probably not. I was talking to someone called Max from the Queer Gossip, which is some glupshito queer podcast, and this guy was going fucking insane at me the whole time. It was hilarious. But he's like, yeah, oh, my life would definitely have been so much better if I'd had puberty blockers. You don't fucking know that. You've no idea. Pisses me off to hear a bunch of sick ass adults talk to kids about how the most important is how they look and pass. Yeah, like, here's the thing. He said that he doesn't deny that it's helped some people, but we don't really know in what way, really. Like, you feel a bit happier. Like, why? I don't know why I feel a bit happier. I just kind of do.
would have told them they couldn't. It's like, well, if we're talking about like a medical protocol and what we do, we can't just base it on, someone I know who would have benefited from it. There has to be good, evidence of long-term outcomes.
But it feels like there's a double standard that you're applying here, where a trans child is just acceptable losses, meat for the machine. Like, I feel like, I don't mean to be emotional, but it's really hard.
I don't mean to be emotional. It's a bit late for that.
Hard to hear the way people talk about us, like our lives don't matter.
Like, how are we saying this? Has he said that at any point? Like, what? Jesus Christ. It's the same again. Like, the other ones are actually halfway sane, and it's fucking Brianna that brings it down, but it's her podcast. So they're stuck with her. Shit.
And, I could point to 20 drugs right now that went through and got to market because there was a lot of money in there for a pharmaceutical company in bringing that to market, where the science showed the efficacy was not so great. Oh, the one for female arousal to increase that. It's a statistical blip. This is not a great drug.
But I mean, the thing is, a drug for female arousal, it's not very essential, I guess. So maybe that matters,
It's amazing it went to market.
And like, if it's like FDA approved and it isn't bad for you, and the worst that's going to happen if it does fuck all is just like eating a sugar pill or something, then I guess, I'd need to know the example way better. You do not affirm mental illness. The problem with that is you have to convince trans people that they have a mental illness. I'm happy, accepting that maybe trans dysphoria, gender dysphoria, whatever, is a mental illness. I don't care. If it is, then it's nowhere near the worst one I deal with. So I don't know. But that seems to have given me perspective.
Market. But we look at that and like we weigh those outcomes, like this is going to help more people.
Do they give drugs that help with women's arousal to children? Because that's a key point as well. It's bad enough like having medication that isn't very proven effective, giving them to adults. But with kids, it's a whole nother matter. I wonder which of the youngsters we first leave Brianna Dollcast. I reckon Kelly. Maybe. Who knows? I think I mentioned on Twitter something about how I was a bit grossed out by Brianna shitting on Ray Alex Williams for no reason. I think it was in response to something Taftash posted, and she liked it, so maybe she agreed with me there. And I did say that her and Skylar seem cool, so.
People, then it hurts, and those drugs come to market. There are all kinds of...
It hurts. See, it's these emotional arguments. Like, she comes off more of a manipulator than someone who's got a different scientific perspective. Because what the fuck does she know about science?
The things in medicine that have much more shaky efficacy than gender.
What about stuff we're giving to kids? What about things that go into kids? And what's the alternative for them? You know what I mean? You need to give examples of this. Just saying, oh, cis people get stuff, but trans people don't. We haven't even really established like what she thinks a trans person is,
affirming medicine. So I feel like rather than going to this this extremist solution that takes those options.
How is that an extremist solution, not letting kids transition? What's extremist about that exactly? Why isn't the extremist position letting kids transition?
out of parents' hands. What I think the right solution is, I fully agree with you, Colin. WPATH getting radicalized in the last 10 years is the worst thing that has ever happened to my community. It is terrible. You're 100% right. That's a bunch of fringe leftists with crazy ideas. This expansion
many of the same ideas that she pushes
of giving surgery to people with non-binary, I have looked up and down for any justification that giving a biological male that thinks they're non-binary breast implants and a full beard and letting them go on estrogen, becoming this thing in the middle, leads to any good health.
I'm going to be honest. I thought when I started my channel, I'd probably do a whole lot of shitting on non-binaries, but I really don't. I don't honestly see much difference between trans and fucking, what's the other one, non-binary. Because most trans people seem to just call themselves a thing and then drink down the flavor aid, you know what I mean? So, I don't know, I barely know what she's talking about here. Hasn't she been talking about learning on from this election? She's still dying on one of the worst hills. That's what she does! Oh my god! That's what she does! It's the same with the trans shit. She says all the right things. So, like, I'd listen to her, like, a year or two ago, whenever it was she was kind of on Chud Logic's radar for a bit, because that's who I mostly watched at the time. And, like, she impressed me at first, because the stuff she was saying, it was like, yeah, I agree with this. Like, the activist community and shit is fucking nuts. But then she acts the same way. She acts like the same fucking SJW/TRA person she was during Gamergate. And she, like, lies and flip-flops constantly. Like, what change is she trying to bring, really? And she's using the same emotional kind of arguments, ripping off fucking ContraPoints arguments. You know what I mean? Brianna will never say, people like Brianna will never say trans is mostly a choice. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, what's it based on then? Is she able to explain? Like, you could say it's gender dysphoria, but then where does gender dysphoria come from? I'm not convinced that it's a starting point for most people. Maybe a few people just have it and nothing else. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can end up with gender dysphoria, as far as I can tell. I mean, like someone like me, I'm a textbook like trauma case. You get people who are fetishists, you know, you get people who just want to be friends with people who just want to fit in with their friends, should I say. As someone who deals with severe mental health, I've kind of always found it kind of offensive when people don't recognize it as mental health. As if as implying, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to accept that it is. Whether it is or not, it doesn't really matter that much to me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see what else it would be. But hey, people resent the implication they have mental health issues. I have like way more severe mental health issues than like gender dysphoria, but it's actually given me perspective. Because like when I see all these other trannies like whining about how shit their lives are because they're trans, to me it's like being trans isn't really a problem for me. I'm kind of worrying about other stuff most of the time, like, you know. And when I was out working, when I was around people a lot, which has been a fair amount of my life, like people don't give a shit really. People don't care if you're trans as long as you're not shoving it down their throat, you know. Not, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Healthcare outcome, which our tax dollars pay for. I don't think this science exists, yet the DSM has been thinks they're non-binary, breast implants and a full beard and letting them go on estrogen, becoming this thing in the middle.
So they're basically trans then. They're still like a trans person. I mean, they've done like procedures to change their body to more match something else. So they're trans, surely. Like I barely see the difference between like non-binary and trans anymore. I think there should be a difference. I think it's kind of hard to work with nowadays because it's been all fucked up and shit. But that's the conditions we created, and now we're here. So hey, I don't know.
Leads to any good healthcare outcome, which our tax dollars pay for. I don't think this science exists, yet the DSM has been rewritten to encourage that. So it seems to me that rather than going to this government overreach solution, the answer lies in looking at those standards. I think WPATH should be the central like public policy battlefield.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, if she's saying like more conversations about things like WPATH and taking them to task, then yeah, I agree with that. But we can still talk about the science itself as well. Like, there's only so much like utility in arguments where it's like, oh, I think we should think about this instead, because you can't really tell people what to focus on. You're so non-binary. Why do you spend most of your time with your tits practically out all the time? That's most like non-binary women. 5 women and 1 man talk, but there's no females. No, you're watching 6 men talk. Be real.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I don't think that there is really convincing evidence that we can reliably know which kids are going to have the long-term benefit of these interventions. So that's why I draw a line right there. And I do have one, I guess, area of...
She's already said this as well. It feels like she's just saying the same thing, so he's saying the same thing, which is nice.
Pushback, I would say, is I personally tend to avoid, and this is a kind of a controversial area, but I've talked to Leor Sapir a lot about this. There's a tendency to use the word like trans kids and refer to these people as like something that they are. They're like, this is a trans kid as something very distinct from a kid who isn't trans. And I tend to favor...
Listen, non-binary women deserve rights too.
Using the word trans or the modifier trans to mean...
Err on the side of caution with kids. Yep, I agree. I don't think the science is there. There's a lot of problems with the science that the people who do the science refuse to acknowledge. We had a recent study by someone called Joanna Olson Kennedy that they finished the study on puberty blockers and then refused to publish the results because they're worried about how it'll be politicized. So I mean, draw what conclusion you want with that. To me, it sounds like they probably weren't shown to be that effective, you know?
Someone who's actually taken steps to like transition, because I think this labeling kids really young as trans is sort of...
Opting out is a thing human beings can do. Sex exists. Yep. And I don't know any compelling evidence for why something like gender identity should trump your sex, if you get me.
Sets them apart from other kids, where I think, they should maybe... They're flagged as, potentially someone who will transition later in life. But it's impossible to know which of those kids will become that category of trans.
If you like the stream, yeah, you should like the stream. You should go down just like this, click the like button, like so. Except to actually click it, I didn't actually click it because I haven't decided yet. And I don't really want to give Brianna Wu likes, to be honest. But like the stream, please.
But don't you see how that argument then continues to people like me? Because then you've got TERF Twitter, which calls me a trans-identified male.
Who cares about TERF Twitter?
I'm a natal male. That's just a fact. But I'm a trans woman. That's what trans women call ourselves. Like, the game here is to frame me as male.
Because you are male. How can you take offense to that? That's why I don't give a shit anymore. Because how can I take offense to it? I mean, specifically with non-binary, transition or don't, there's no opting out of identifying with either sex. Yeah, I think we mean kind of the same thing.
To demean me and to push a public policy discussion where I'm segregated from society.
How are you segregated from society? Jesus Christ, sorry, I have to just get back and like get the whole thing, because like she says one thing and then it sets me off, and then she says another thing and then it just sets me off all over again. It's so annoying.
That's just a fact, but I'm a trans woman. That's what trans women call ourselves. Like, the game here is to frame me as male, to demean me and to push a...
It only demeans you if you let it. People call me a man. I don't find it demeaning because I don't let it.
Public policy discussion where I'm segregated from society.
And this public policy discussion where I'm segregated, this need to like bring it back to the self, this must be like a thing that people are taught to do, to make it more difficult to argue objectively by putting yourself in the conversation, because it's more difficult to say something about someone specifically than talk about an issue as an abstract, you know what I mean? Or in abstract, whatever the term is. It's so toxic in my opinion. Yeah, she called herself a male, so how is it fucking demeaning? And like, if TERFs on Twitter are mean to you, fucking block them. You don't have any problem blocking anyone that fucking mildly criticizes you. but you get all the TERFs on Twitter being mean to you. Who cares? What? That's not a problem. That's like white people problems as fuck. That's the most first world problems thing I've ever seen. And I'm trans. I know all about fucking first world problems, trust me.
So I don't have an issue with doing that with children. It's just like you have to think about where the next step is, if that makes sense to you. But
I don't know. What's she saying here?
Segregated from society. So I don't have an issue with doing that with children. It's just like you have to think about where the...
Yeah, like in what way are trans people segregated from society? I've been an active member of society. I haven't been segregated. The people that segregated me are usually other trans people. And then when I have jobs or like I meet some people that I make music with and they're just random cis people, they don't give a fuck. They just treat me like a normal person. And that's what I want. The other doll don't look like they agrees. Yeah. Listen, she tried to get a bit of shade going with the Ray GP thing, and these three weren't having it. Like, Skylar even tried to turn it around a bit. Like, I do have at least some respect for the rest of them. You know what I mean? Worst slippery slope argument, yep.
The next step is, if that makes sense to you. But I want to come back to this. Like, I really, again, I'd love an answer on this.
Again? Okay, so you're going to state the same shit yet again. Nice. Amazing. Because he feels like he's going in circles already. But that kind of hinges on what he's presented, you know what I mean?
Why to you? Like, let's say I'll be very generous and say it is 5 trans kids out of 100 regret.
Oh, it's another manipulation tactic. Well, there's going to be some kids. You have to decide which kids to sacrifice. Why are you sacrificing the trans kids? Let's see.
It's not that, as best as I can tell, like male to female trans kids. The female to male, I want to get them just out of the cohort completely. Testosterone is so powerful, you can wait till later.
Maybe she does hate FTMs.
But why is that 5 children who may regret it, which is a very high number, more important than the 95 that are going to feel like their lives are better?
More important for what? Oh, have fun, Joan d'Arc.
Because I think that number, if you reversed it, how many of those children are going to feel like their lives are worse from not transitioning? Like, why does one count? Why do trans lives
feel worse for not transitioning? It's like, I don't know, if you put that to something like cancer or something, and like a few of those patients are going to die, whatever you do, like, it's just not the same. Like, are the stakes as high as she's saying they are? I just don't believe that. Like, the suicide numbers are inflated as fuck. We use it as a beating pole anyway. It's just preposterous.
Does not matter, and the cis lives do.
And it's about who matters. This isn't like scientific like language. Who matters? Well, you're saying that they don't matter. Like, essentialize a bit more. Jesus Christ. She is like dyed in the wool fucking TRA. She's never getting away from it. Like, I don't know what age you stop learning, but I think she hit that a long time ago, personally.
How many of those children are going to feel like their lives are worse from not transitioning? Like, why does one count? Why do trans lives not matter?
And how is this not like a politicized argument, by the way? She wants to politicize trans less. Fuck off. I don't believe that at all. Why do the 0.6% trans count more than the 99.4% of non-trans? I don't know. I don't know why she's talking about, well, these ones matter and these ones don't. Is that what you're saying? Like, that's not a good argument. That's just trying to manipulate someone. That's trying to make him feel bad into changing his point. Like, she sucks at this. She's terrible.
And the cis lives do. That's what I don't understand.
Taftage just then. I don't think she was happy with that.
And the cis lives do. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't actually know what she's thinking in that moment, but I feel it. The watchful and waiting numbers were up to 90% pubertal congruence. Here's the data 100% the wrong way. There's a study. She was saying that she was spitballing, but she said 95 and 5. 95% was a number they found for how many of them continued their transition. what was it? Yeah, they found a 95% like continuation rate, as opposed to a desistance rate. And it was because they were all like socially transitioned, like ages before they were even part of the thing. So they were all getting affirmed. It's so weird.
Well, I think all lives matter, but
saying they matter. It's like, what is she even trying to argue in that case?
I don't think we have good data to suggest what the desistance rates actually are at the moment. I mean, we have so much loss to follow up from all the studies that are performed. If we had an accurate
loss to follow up, which often aren't, what's the word I'm looking for? Which often aren't counted as like desisters or detransitioners or anything, even though that's probably the most likely thing that's happening. Do I think the trans suicide rate is exaggerated? It definitely is. It's definitely higher than cis people. The thing with the trans community is the suicide rate is sometimes super low because, transition's amazing and it sorts all our problems out. And then suddenly it's super high because, we're all victims, oh my God. It's bizarre. And like, I don't know, there was like people like Essence of Thought and people like that pushing a conspiracy theory about the Tavistock 16. And this is 16 kids who apparently killed themselves since the Kira Bell case, which was a trans child desister that sued the NHS. They say that 16 kids killed themselves because they're trans and nothing else, when the possible number is about 6 or 7. So it's being inflated. It's being inflated and deflated depending on the conversation. Seems to make a lot of assumptions about childhood depression and childhood mental illness. Yeah.
accurate assessment, I think if we could have really clear data, and I know the Manhattan Institute has a lot of data that they've been able to purchase, and they're working through making as more accurate reports as we can possibly do on this.
Sure.
To find out what those rates are.
So, I will say it's 49 and 51. Okay. 49 kids desist and regret, 51 trans kids feel like it benefited them. Why in that scenario would the trans kids not matter and the cis?
Like, why say not matter? Why not say something like, don't get treatment and the other ones do? You have to like push it in this weird way. Crazy out of the trans people I know as trans women myself, not one committed suicide. I'll believe that the rate is higher, but it just seems to depend on what the conversation is to a lot of people. Like fucking Schrodinger's suicidal transsexual. I don't know. I'll think of a better one.
Kids would. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah. Interpret a little bit with this. I think what I'm hearing, Colin, and like correct me if I'm hearing this incorrectly. It seems like right now we just don't have strong evidence for any meaningful positive effect within trans kids. So we've got like survey data. We've got some studies that are showing like very small effects that are beneficial. And so we're hearing this rhetoric, like even from Brianna, where you're talking about like depressive.
Yes, Taftage, yes.
Episodes and suicide. We don't have evidence that like HRT lowers suicide risk in trans kids. We don't have that evidence. And we do have evidence that HRT causes sterilization and causes irreversible body changes. And all of that is very well understood. But
you know what else we have evidence of? Brianna Wu being a male.
The benefit is very, it's kind of nebulous. It's hard to pinpoint. And it's for so many methodological reasons.
This is like saying if 49% of people executed were innocent, why not focus on the 51% who were guilty? Yeah.
It seems like when you're given that opportunity, all these kids who maybe will benefit from transition, and then you're talking about like this large 49% like desistance rate, it seems like the responsibility.
Studies are like 60 to 90%, but they are correct in that there's not all that much data.
Of the medical provider is to not intervene and potentially make something worse. I don't know if that's like a fair assessment. Colin, feel free to add on to that, but I think that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, I mean, it has to do with the severity of the interventions. I mean, we're going to have, wrongfully sterilize, half of the people who are going through this. That's a major thing. These are totally irreversible. And while I understand that going through puberty for someone who's eventually going to, consistently identify as trans is also potentially irreversible. There are people who are trans who do pursue, certain.
It's not that kids don't matter, but we can't take a risk ruining our lives in case of the phase. Yeah. And like the emotional language she uses doesn't help.
Surgeries and hormones that do change parts of their body. It's more difficult. I will admit it's not that it's easy to be a trans woman and it's going to be an easy time and it's just as good at trying to make cosmetic changes after the fact. That's clearly, it's really difficult. But I would say that if we're going to have some sort of intervention, we have to have a pretty reliable evidence that this is going to be overwhelmingly beneficial rather than harmful. And permanent changes to children mixed with sterilization, that's just a really hard hump to get over, you say, yes, we should be doing this.
True. Huge risk. So we need good evidence and we don't have it. It should be this simple. I hope Brianna has a bit more than just like appeals to emotion, but I'm skeptical, to be honest.
To kids. It's one of those situations that it's the least bad situation because, until we have a better idea of desistance rates and, if we could have a crystal ball where we could know which kids are never going to regret it from a very early age, that's something I'd be open to. I'd say, okay, if we can know for sure.
Controversial because you get transsexuals in their 40s and 50s that want to live vicariously through like other people. They wish that they transitioned younger, even though they probably could have. They blame things like, oh, well, I didn't have the language at the time, or whatever the fuck people like Amethyst to say. That seems to be a big driving force for it. I don't know. And then all these trendy like liberal parents, they get to live the dream too because they can transition their own kids. So it's great. Don't you love it? Don't you just love it?
But we can't, and right now we really have no really good idea of what the level of desistance rates, especially because of the ideological shift we've recently experienced.
Would you admit that pragmatically, let's say tomorrow you get your way, President Trump takes you up like you asked him to on Twitter to put you in charge of this policy, you enact a total ban on children transitioning. Would you acknowledge that the very first thing they are going to do is to go on like estrogens, not difficult to synthesize, and anti-androgens? You're not going to get drugged to sniffing dogs to find anti-androgens. Like you would admit that just like abortion and women going into back alleys, the first thing that's going to happen is those kids are...
Ken Zuckers. I haven't looked too much into that one. The main one that I saw was the Thomas Steensma one, which I think was around 69% or something with desisting. I'll have to look more at it. I've looked at like some studies more than others.
They're going to turn to Dr. 4chan. And they're going to start getting their healthcare online, and there's not going to be an endocrinologist. There's not going to be anyone there to like put a medical safeguarding in place, something you and I both agree on. Like, you will agree that those kids are still going to experiment medically. There's just not going to be a provider in the mix, right?
Yeah, I imagine some people will resort to doing extreme things for sure.
When we're talking about kids, can you imagine, like, how do you explain if you get caught, like, buying your kid, like, black market puberty blockers or, like, HRT or something? It's bizarre.
Sure, but I don't think we should make our policy, around the fact of what people are going to do on their own or what they might.
I honestly think they have zero sympathy for detransition women whose bodies are destroyed because they're like, haha, look at our world. Welcome to our world. I'm sure I've heard people make that exact take, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Have access to. I think we need to have evidence-based policy.
Breastfeeding matters normally for trans women. It suddenly doesn't matter when it comes to detrans women. Yep. And like breastfeeding is like an important bonding exercise. Not a bonding exercise. That sounds weird, but it's an important bonding activity. Like, there's not much closer you'll get to your baby as a mother once you've had it. And like it's not a necessary thing. Not everyone breastfeeds, but I mean the mother of my nephew, like she stopped breastfeeding because he's 1.5. It'll be too soon, and like it was quite emotional for her because she, that's the closest you're really getting to your kid anymore, unless you're into like incest and stuff, which I'm fucking hoping not, but.
First and foremost, and hopefully we can get those people other care that they might need so that they wouldn't maybe pursue these other avenues.
I
think
don't know if I agree.
we need to have
like
a grandfather clause as well.
I don't know.
I think it's like abortion. Yeah.
Why does she think this? Like, here's the thing. If they offered other therapies, that might well like lower the amount of people going to like black market sources, because people aren't aware of like other therapies because they're not practiced anywhere. And, I end up in debates where I'm like having to, people are like, oh, well, what's your evidence for other therapies working? It's like, there isn't any because no one will do it because everyone calls it conversion therapy.
Beyond, well, I mean, not to disagree with you, Brie, but like, no. I mean, it's kind of like saying, like, oh, well, rapists are going to rape anyway.
You've got the wrong male on screen. Can we get the right one, please?
Like, why make it illegal? It's because it's like,
there we go. Oh, she sounded a bit scared of disagreeing with Brianna.
There are always going to be people who are going to go against the law or go to extreme measures to do certain things. But I get like it's different when we're talking in the aspect of healthcare. But it's like I just think this conversation kind of sucks because, more kids are going to do those extreme things because we've made the whole trans topic so public and it's being discussed in schools and it's all.
I think I agree with her. I would also say it's been railroaded down one specific pathway, that being affirmation and transition and nothing else. So like parents probably don't know what else is out there. You know what I mean? But I do think she's got a point here.
All over the media now, and I just feel like the trans visibility movement has almost harmed us more because now it's
yeah. I mean, visibility is a double-edged sword for sure. Breastfeeding is called the 4th trimester for infants. Is that important? Fair enough, yeah.
It's just now more kids, like I've said it like a million times, it used to be a kid would like say they feel like a girl if they were a little boy, and now they're just going up to their parents or teacher and saying, oh, I'm trans, because they know what that is now, and it's like taught to them. So I don't know, I feel like it's almost just
oh my god, this is why I'm so against all this like LGBT like education in like schools, especially primary school or elementary school, whatever you call it. We're not telling them what exists. We're putting ideas into their heads. We're teaching them the framework of how we have decided gender is now, so that they can pick and choose what they identify with. Why are we teaching them this shit? We shouldn't be. We should be letting them figure this shit out for themselves. Like, surely the best way is to try and spend as least time as possible having adults tell kids what the world is like and allow them to experience it for themselves,
kind of like fucked us over in a way.
And Kelly, even on that, like, because these kids are hearing this rhetoric, like, you are going to kill yourself unless you transition.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I told my parents that I thought now, and it's like taught to them. So I don't know. I feel like it's almost just kind of like fucked us over in a way.
And Kelly, even on that, like, because these kids are hearing this rhetoric, like, you are going to kill yourself.
Yes. Listen. It's driving me insane how often I watch things and the words trans and suicide are used in the same sentence. It's mind-blowing. Maybe if we stop talking about suicide in conjunction with trans all the time, maybe that'd help,
Unless you transition.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I told my parents that
she's agreeing. Has she never used this kind of rhetoric? As in this, people will kill themselves. She's suggesting that people don't matter, aka they're not getting the healthcare that she thinks they need. This girl with fingernail eyebrow. Which one? Do you mean Brianna or Kelly? I'm not sure.
I thought I would kill myself when truly I don't know if I would have killed myself if I didn't go on HRT. But a huge reason
like doesn't Brianna push those talking points like ever? I feel like she does. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm slandering her.
conservative parents let me go on HRT is because I told them that. And truly, if they still told me no, I don't think I would have been suicide. I don't think I have the ability to kill myself. I just don't think I'm that different.
Yeah, I mean,
so much if when is that, it's like,
it just resonates.
Is that going to like make other kids just say these things so they can get what they want? You know what I mean? Like, not like saying you, but I'm just saying like the trans community as a whole, like pushing that. It's all.
Brianna agrees when people do like says it. Hey, maybe. I don't think she thinks this. I can accept maybe Kelly Cadigan does. I don't actually know very much about Kelly Cadigan, but I don't think she's down with this at all.
Almost like telling kids to say these things in order to get what they want in a way.
Or telling these kids that like, if
people are too harsh on Kelly. She's not that bad. Brianna plays both sides. I have no idea what she thinks. Yep, that sounds about right.
their parents say no, then you do need to go on 4chan and like get whatever HRT you can. So I think
I just want to clarify, I do not support going on 4chan. Just to be clear, I'm just saying it's going to happen. So,
but I think that because the conversation has become so elevated and so extreme, we have like, you know, if we're worried about kids going on 4chan, I think that also probably contributes to that, this feeling that like, oh my God, you know, the science is settled. If I don't start HRT, I'm dead, I'm gone. And like earlier, we were talking about kind of understanding transition retroactively. And like Kelly, I don't necessarily know. She
once told me that I owed her for defending me for harassment. Jesus. I was trying to figure out what she meant. It was literally because she had posted in defense of Jewish women in general. Yeah, it's this thing where it's like she's talking about big groups of people, but then narrowing it down to one when it suits her. It's so weird. I mean, no one owes anything because some fucking idiot like defended you on Twitter. Like she spurgs out about Israel-Palestine constantly on Twitter. Like, okay.
If it would have been like the worst thing if I never transitioned. Like, you know, I recognize that I'm an outlier in this. I always, you know, put that on the table, but I think I probably would have been okay not transitioning. And, you know, just living as kind of like AGP man. And so, I mean, that's like hard to acknowledge. And I think that like, if I had not transitioned, I would have always had this burning feeling of like, oh, if I just transition, everything will be like great in my life. But I think if I had like not transitioned in a hypothetical world where I also know where I end up having transitioned, and I would have been able to like sate that curiosity and just say like, okay, that's how I would feel psychologically, then I think I could probably not transition and be okay. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the ability to like transfer information between timelines. But I do feel like so much of my transition, like, you know, candidly, Colin, you don't know this, but I came out when I was like 14. So I transitioned very early. And a lot of the rhetoric that I was hearing from doctors was like, you know, you just need to do this and like it'll fix pretty much everything in your life.
Oh, wow. Like, I transitioned a decently long time ago. And it was much more about things like, you know, you need to be sure. And everything she's saying here right now is like confirming that to me. Like, yeah, it's fine if you're an adult and you're dead set on transitioning. Just be sure about it and understand like the risks and stuff.
That turned out not to be the case. Now, would I say transition had like bad effects for me? No, not necessarily. Like, I would say it's overall maybe like a slight positive, but it also cost a lot. So I don't think, even in my case, I don't think it's like a clear cut, you know, positive or negative example.
Yeah, I'll raise one thing too, is that has to do with sort of the social contagion of suicide. And if you look, I think it's Glad.
Yep, this is a true thing. Look into, is it Bridgend in Wales? There was a whole thing going on there about 20 years ago or something. Loads of kids killing themselves.
And even the ACLU and other sort of the human rights campaign, they used to issue these documents of how to talk about suicide. And it used to be very clear that, you know, don't attribute.
God, no one can talk about suicide anymore. Like, I knew trans people who were like supposed woke people, the kind that will scold other people for their language constantly. And then like suicide bait on like Facebook or whatever, graphically typing out how they would do it It's like, oh, okay, anyone that's witnessed a suicide attempt done that way is probably a bit scarred right now. Amazing, brilliant, brilliant. We're all narcissists. None of us actually give a fuck, so...
suicide to any particular exogenous event like a legislation or something like that, because suicide's an enormously complex thing. And if people are saying that, like, oh, these people committed suicide because of this one thing over here, because of a legislation, this sort of, given the social contagion of suicide.
Yep, you don't know that's the case. Even if they write a letter, even if they write a suicide note, is just what they're saying. I mean, I guess we lean towards believing someone if they're dead now, but, we don't know why people kill themselves. We don't know how much of the factor is like trans, if it's a trans person.
Suicide makes people more likely to commit suicide when certain laws are passed. And we have this complete flip of the narrative now, where you have HRC, you have GLAAD.
Post about Israel, Palestine constantly on Twitter. What's wrong with that? Nothing really. I was talking to someone else about something. I can't remember what it was now, so I don't know.
We're talking specifically about, like, what to do if you're feeling suicidal because of this new, law being passed. And this is just completely counter to what they're doing. And so, there's a suggestion that kids who, if they're going to the black market to get, DIY HRT and stuff because they're so concerned that they're going to commit suicide, like, some of that is because of, I think it was the narrative around suicide and how it's become seen as almost like a reasonable thing to do, or just like an inevitable outcome of not receiving these things.
Yes, it's treated like an inevitability, and that sucks.
So I fully agree with you, and I want to see the conversation. Like, I really hope I'm not coming across here as the person that's like all gas and no brakes with gender transition. Is not my intention. I fully.
So if that's not the case, why is she making these like manipulative as fuck like arguments,
Agree with you. These stories of saying your kid's automatically going to kill themselves, utterly unhelpful. We need to stop that today. I guess it's just
reports of suicidality are also broken. I feel suicidal during mental health episodes, but I've only actually been at risk of suicide once in my life. Oh my God, have you seen Seven? Do you know who Alec Gunter is? I think he was making this mistake. He did this Twitter debate against, I think it was someone called Alexander the OK or something. He just kept asking, oh, does suicidality lead to suicide? Does suicidality lead to suicide? I wasn't listening. Does suicidality lead to suicide? He ends up like losing his shit at this Alexander guy and like storming off the call. It's fucking hilarious. Bottom middle.
It's like,
I like bottom left better.
When I'm thinking about the public policy that we have to develop, it's really hard if you're saying, like, don't talk about the suicidal ideation. Like a kid getting a gun, or like Leela Alcorn throwing themselves in front of an 18-wheeler. That's not the only way that these like self-destructive tendencies exhibit themselves. It's with sexually risky behavior. I mean, how many trans women have AIDS? Colin, you've published these stories over at Reality's Last Stand. Risky sexual behavior, eating disorders, drug addiction, depression. Like a kid killing themselves is not the only way that this is expressed. And I think it's not, if I'm saying like the risk of DIY stuff, that's not to like come there and scaremonger. It's because I'm trying to ask everyone here to consider if we're going after the right target.
Listen, Newman Core, it's called autogynephilia for a reason.
And now we have,
this here. We want questions to be able to be raised. We in transition. And I used to just think about this like, oh, that's just a trans girl with autism. And I today,
like, not to like reiterate my point, but I just feel like,
but
back.
I think we're about here. I can't remember.
The access today, and I, hand to God, I can think of no way to regulate this. I can't. Like cryptocurrency, you're not going to make cryptocurrency go away.
I mean, here's the thing. Are people going to potentially gain access to like black market chemotherapy if such a thing even exists? Maybe. I don't fucking know.
You can't intercept this stuff at the border. I mean, how are you going to stop this from happening? Like pragmatically, I can't think of a way.
Well,
Yeah, and just to back
You could say that about black women having more testosterone. That does sound like the kind of thing that a white nationalist would say. Yeah.
So I'm for a total ban on on minors, but I don't think that does necessarily mean I'm for like a total ban on these types of procedures completely for adults. And I think 18 is. I mean, I remember when I was 18. That's still pretty damn young. I don't think saying that I'm for a total ban at a certain age cohort. But yeah, so
Brianna just sucks. I'm not Frank Wu. I wouldn't know, unfortunately.
What would that be? Would that be 18 or 25?
It'd be 18.
Okay.
And I'm curious, do you know, have those suicide numbers gone up? Because I just wonder if they have, like, how much of it has to do with, like kids just being exposed to the idea of transition being possible. Yeah. Because like, not to like reiterate my point, but I just feel like we gained so much more when people weren't aware that this was possible. And it was only something they did when they knew they had to do it. And it was the last resort. So when, we tell kids at like 6, 7 years old that like, oh, you can try.
Can't stop them getting black market. So give it to everyone who asks. Yep, exactly. Now we're getting it.
Transition. This is possible for some people. Be accepting. It almost like tells them, oh, I need to do this. And it almost like makes those suicidal ideations and thoughts like come a lot more often than they are supposed to.
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah. So from what I've seen, suicide rates, they've been going up across the board just in general for younger people. But this is, correlates with the general increase in mental health issues for young people. And it's really difficult to disentangle. Is it because they're identifying as trans, or do they have mental health issues before that sort of causes them to identify as trans later? It's kind of hard to know which, where the causal factors lie. I think there has been an increase in sort of suicidal, ideation, but the actual rates of suicide, I don't think have gone up specifically, when you control for things like comorbidities and mental health issues and things like that.
Yeah, this was what Gunt got stuck on. Jesus Christ, he loses his shit. There's a video. I streamed about it the other day. There's a video coming soon on it because Jesus fucking Christ, that guy.
But social anxiety, we know that's skyrocketing. I'm pretty sure like drug addiction rates, they are going up, across the board.
I don't remember seeing that people admitted they've been coached to say they were suicidal in the cast review, but I've definitely heard of that kind of thing.
So I think it would probably be reasonable to expect a lot of that is happening for trans people as well.
Yeah. It depends if it's because they're trans or is it because of the, co-occurring mental health issues. Is it just...
Well, it's very simple. If they're trans, it's 100% because they were trans. And if they're not trans, then it can't be because they're not trans. That's how it works. Just ask Brianna. She knows all about this.
The result of the mental health things, or is it innate to their...
And that's why I want to get these healthcare providers there. I mean, something you've talked about a lot on Reality's Last Stand, which I had never thought about, is this tie between autism and transition. And I used to just think about this like, oh, that's just a trans girl with autism. And I today think...
Wait, she didn't know this. This is like basic. Why is there a doctor called Spag? That's unfortunate. The majority of self-harmful actions are not real suicide attempts and are not usually life-threatening. Fair enough. I guess it's self-harm them more than anything.
Like something fundamental, like these girls are, I don't mean this in a bad way. They're just different than I am. Like their motivations are different. Their culture is different. The way they behave is different. Like I think we would be so served by like unpacking those comorbidities and giving everyone more space to explore that stuff. I think one of the most dangerous aspects of the activists kind of getting the reins to healthcare is there's not a willingness. Like there's a system that transition and it's going to fix all your problems, rather than going, okay, you've got social anxiety disorder to the point where you can't go outside. Maybe we need to work on this at the same time, or a drug addiction at the same time. Like I just think like the comorbidities, you can't transition if it's not from a place of stability. Right? It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done.
Oh, trust me, people still do. To be fair, that was kind of what I did, but hey.
And I think that we're just serving people into the machine, as is evidenced by the way the community behaves, which is just deranged a lot of the time.
Hypocrisy, but I guess true.
Yeah. Have you heard of minority stress hypothesis, Brianna?
I have, yes.
I bet she's pushed this. Nah, come on. Come on. Minority stress. If I search a Twitter... Wait, if I control F, maybe? It's not going to come up. Maybe it wasn't her. Someone was like really harping on at this, and I can't remember who.
But tell our viewers what this is. Yes.
So it's commonly used rather than sort of people who have a lot of social anxiety and whatever.
God, it's really striking how much of this shit is just in service of excusing people their bad actions or bad ways of thinking. Like minority stress, like things like reverse racism, where you can only be racist in one direction. So it excuses anyone being racist in the other direction. It's so fucked, man. It's so fucked. Everything has to be not anyone's fault. That isn't what life's like, I don't think.
You know, being more likely to be drawn to the sort of ideologies or something of the modern trans movement, it tends to view it just the opposite. It views all of the distress, everything through the lens of, oh, it's because society is treating them poorly because they're trans, and that, oh, if they only transition, then...
Yeah, and they don't explain in what way society is like treating them badly. It's just society tells us this, and it's like, I don't have that experience whatsoever, but okay. Which is why, I don't know, I try not to make massive statements about society all the time. Maybe I fail sometimes at that, but I definitely don't want to hear things like, oh, you know, society treats us so badly as trans people, or society tells us we have to do this, that, and the other. Because I think those are like basically all bullshit statements. I've never heard a good one.
And like all of these things would be alleviated. I mean, even Jack Turpin even said that the high autism rates among people who are trans is part of the whole minority stress type of thing. It's not really autism.
Jack Turpin is a fucking doctor. He's like a big deal. Like the fact that the healthcare professionals that we're relying on are the ones pushing these kind of things, inventing these fucking crazy narratives. It's kind of fucked, man. Like, no, it's not your fault. You just should transition. Like, what?
And so, I mean, it's really an all. Yeah. It's kind of this idea that is completely unfalsifiable because it's you know, you can't test it. It explains everything, therefore it explains nothing.
Yep, same as gender identity. Your gender identity is different from your sex. What's your gender identity? You can't look at another person's gender identity. It's ridiculous. But we've decided that gender identity is the big factor here. I just don't see it, you know.
And any tests of the hypothesis have just not shown anything to be true, or if they have, it's through sort of a wonky interpretation of the data. This is something Leor has written about on my Substack before.
Wow. Colin, I have a question for you.
Oh, thanks, Newman Core. I love Nazis. I mean, I know, whatever. I can edit what I want out of my fucking videos, so.
That is really leaning into your biology background, just because I like how you approach it with that. So I also am very similar to Taff in that I see the typology framework as useful or helpful.
How do I observe one's gender? Yep. I mean, you can observe their like gender expression, but that goes through the filter of their brain and their thinking and stuff, you know? Clipped. Yeah, that's fine. Listen, I look forward to the main criticism for me for years to come being, oh, they like Nazis.
For me, and when I made decisions about my transition, I identify with the autosexual type. That's something that I have experience with, and I think was directly...
Yeah, because when you say I identify with something, like let's say I'm an AGP, I identify with the AGP label, it just means I see those traits as being in myself. Identify as someone doesn't mean I am this. Like, it's preposterous. When I said I identify as a woman, like when I was younger, when I was earlier in my transition, I didn't know what I meant, like literally, you know what I mean? it's like it was meant to be like metaphorical, and it became the opposite, you know.
Be kind of, feeding into my gender dysphoria, and what were some of the motivators for my transition.
To be fair, Callie, I used to be in it's a joke. I used to be in this ideology. I was never like both feet in, and there was always stuff that bothered me, but like I definitely took on some of it. I think if I was like 10 years younger, I'd probably be a very, very different person, you know?
And I was not a child transitioner. I transitioned at 25. I just sort of won the genetic lottery in a way and was able to make this sort of work. And I do appreciate the fact that I had time to help come to my conclusions and my decision making, as I feel like it's given me a lot more confidence in just kind of how to view transition as a solution for me to move forward and live a better life, and rather than like changing my sex or anything like that. And so I guess what I want to go with is, when it comes to sexual orientation and sexuality, I think like what I've gained or what I've seen is that most consensus seems to be it's a process that happens in utero. But I want to hear from you about how that process, sort of how you understand it to work. And to that point, is there any sort of evolutionary advantage to experience attraction to yourself, or in my case, attraction to yourself as the opposite sex? And like, why could that happen from like an evolutionary standpoint?
Oh, that's interesting. So from what I know, the literature on the development of sexuality is something that is done in utero. There's also somewhat of a genetic component, but it's kind of the wiring of your brain, because there's surges of testosterone at different levels in utero that like males will experience that females won't. And we know that if you survey a bunch of people who are lesbians, you do brain scans on them, their brains are slightly more androgenized, and so which means have responded to higher levels of testosterone. They have sort of these finger digit ratios that are exemplify sort of higher levels of testosterone. Women who have polycystic ovary syndrome and their bodies are producing more levels of testosterone, they tend to be, not all of them, but they tend to be more same-sex attracted as well. So, hormone exposure does have a developmental role in who people are attracted to. It's kind of different. I think androgenization predicts, being attracted to women, to the female body type, but it's not exactly the same with males. It's not, they're, being...
Oh, hey, Hillary Clinton, what do you think of Brianna Wu?
Have a sort of feminized or non-androgenized...
Yeah, I do, yeah. Like, it's not bad. Funny.
It makes you more likely to be gay, or though I think it is a little bit, but it's not...
What was that guy's name that had, like, the weirdest, most brain-dead fucking accusations of all time? It was like George Not Found or something. He apparently put his hand up a girl's top a bit, and that was rape or something. But like, whenever he was sat in front of the camera, it was always angled away, so his jawline looked perfect. Like, and then he'll like look at you from this weird angle and like talk because he's showing off his jawline. It just amuses me.
Quite as clear cut as just like direct exposures to androgens makes people more likely to be attracted to females in development. So it appears to be an innate feature, just your sexuality, that you will eventually be. It's interesting to think about whether something like AGP is its own unique sexuality that's sort of exists on the spectrum of, being straight or being gay. There might be something else going on there. I mean, I've known that there have been some brain scan studies where there's an area in the brain. I'm terrible with like names of the brains, but my friend Sam Stagg has reviewed a lot of these studies. And it's an area of the brain that has to do with like self-perception and things like that. And that tends to be larger in individuals who are like the AGP, the heterosexual, transsexual cohort.
Oh, really? That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's the same area in the brain. It's the same area in the brain that has to do with like people who are anorexic. It's sort of, they see themselves as one way, but they feel some other way, and it's really interesting. Yeah. It's kind of it's what you might expect. It's kind of like a holy crap, like this makes sense in a developmental sense. As far as like an evolutionary explanation for AGP, you know, I'm not sure if I could come up with it. I mean, it's so rare that it's in the realm of, you know, variation is out there. There are some, not every trait can be, you know, coughed up to an adaptationist view. Some traits are just kind of, they exist in the population because they're correlated with other traits. So I'm not convinced that it is even an adaptive trait, or how exactly that could be adaptive. I mean, I'd have to think about it to come up with a scenario, but it would be I'd have to work on it and to come up with a reliable thing that made sense.
I definitely have like crazy theories on that for sure. But
we can chat about those if you want.
Yeah, well, just on that, I mean, for most of human history, having AGP does not necessarily entail like a medical transition or sterilization, because you don't have access to these hormones. So it's not necessarily something that we'd expect to be like strongly selected against, especially if AGPs are also historically having sex with women. So it seems like plausible to me that it can exist in that evolutionary context. So yeah.
So is it one further extension to that is, I've seen some people say that your sexuality kind of like, I guess in utero is like the basis of it, but then it is kind of.
You're correct. Yes, I was blinking Morse code. Do you want to know what I was saying? I was saying like the stream. You should like the stream. If you go down, you can like the stream like this. You see, you click this button. You like the stream. You should do it. Thank you.
Continuously hardwiring up until puberty. What are your thoughts on that? Does it continue through like early childhood? Is there any possibility for environmental mechanisms to, you know, shape that further, or is it really more in utero?
I mean, there's always going to be some environmental play that goes on. You know, before, you know, puberty and things like that, before people are beginning to be sexually active, before they're attracted to anyone, you know, consciously or anything.
Yeah, Skylar seems to shout quite loud at her mic. It doesn't seem necessary to me. I don't know. Like, move it a bit closer and just talk quietly. How long is my mewing streak? I don't know what mewing means because I'm old-ish.
It tends to be exhibited in just sex non-conforming behavior. Like, you'll get sort of more masculine behaving girls and more feminine behaving boys. That's not to say that every masculine girl or feminine boy is going to grow up to be gay, but they by and large do. You know, a large proportion of them will. And so, but it isn't until, you know, they get to reach puberty and they start, you know, their gonads start activating, that sex nonconformity extends itself to the.
Okay, but I'm not doing it on the screen that's being captured. Mewing. I don't know. I hear all these weird like phrases. I'm not down with the kids anymore. What the fuck? Okay, it's not weird or anything, but it's a technique that involves pressing the tongue against the roof of the mouth to improve jaw and facial structure. What? And this is a thing now? The mewing craze from 2019. I don't remember hearing about this in 2019. 2020. All right, hang on. Am I doing it? Do I look better? Do I look better? I was doing it just then.
The realm of sexuality, where they're also sex non-conforming in their sexual preferences. So that's kind of how it tends to manifest through development. It's just sex non-conformity, and then that just sort of extends to their sexual preferences later on.
Ah, gutted. That's one window of validation out.
Right. So you can see it in the behavior. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
You know, I tell you what, I'll keep mewing, and y'all can just tell me at the end whether it improved my face or not.
Thank you.
So I have a question. How politically, like, just getting, like, one of my things is I try to be.
Is that critical age before or after 34?
Very pragmatic. Like, where do we go? I'm very much a ABC project manager. How do we get down the list? And I think very often, like with this stuff, we tend to talk about our ideals and we don't really talk about how we get there. So, like when it comes to taming the extremism of the trans movement, I've got a plan, right? It's dollcast is part of this, like bring more moderate viewpoints out there, dedicate more of my.
Which part of the plan is fixing the audio so your volume doesn't jump up randomly? That'd be nice. It was happening to one of the others the other time when I was watching it. And now it's her. Fuck's sake, man.
Media public presence to getting moderate perspectives out there and working on Washington.
Yes, Brianna Wu having more of a media presence. That's going to help the trans people. She's fucking on it. You know what I mean?
Post piece right now on this.
Which part of this plan involves spurging the fuck out on Twitter constantly? Like, doing shit like this all the time. Twitter is so broken. Here is the truth of this case. We are going to get annihilated. What was the trans rights showdown heading to the Supreme Court? Am I going to realize I'm AGP soon? I already realized. Let's say Brianna is not me, and clearly not. No. Brianna Wu, listen, she'll never have my looks, and I didn't get any fucking surgery, so hey.
Like to present a different side so that trans women don't only have to go into this fringe left community, right? That's my plan to turn down the conversation. Yeah, I'm looking for a place to go with people to do that.
Problem is she acts like them, you know what I mean? We're just getting someone who says the right things and then still acts like a fucking freak. It doesn't work. Like, people don't want this shit, you know what I mean? People don't want all this shit. Like, all this crazy shit she comes out with on Twitter all the time. Fucking hell.
With me.
Listen. I've been calling myself a male since the start of my stream as well, so...
Over on your side, like, I want to be clear, I don't think, like, you're against us. I do think your audience, generally speaking...
What does increasing the number of trans people in media help with? Acceptance, it didn't go quite well with black people in movies. Like, the visibility argument has two sides, because on the one side, being seen by more people might make you hated by more people, but it also make you liked by more people. The thing about... Oh, 7, that's fine. We can do that whenever you want. If it was me, you meant anyway. I've lost the comment. Yeah. So, like, I think she's trying to normalize more trans people in media. The problem is, most of my issues that I take with, like, trans stuff nowadays are as a result of listening to trans people. So, like, it depends what they're saying. It depends what they believe in. If they're just going to be pushing the same fucking bunk that everyone else has been, then what's the point? Like, it needs to be the right kind of people. And whether Brianna knows this or not, and I suspect, unfortunately, she doesn't, she's not the person for that, because we have the same problems. She makes these, like, manipulative arguments and stuff.
Has, more people that are critical of trans people than, say, I do. So, like, what concretely, or what role do you think you have to kind of get the conversation to be more productive, or do you think you don't have a role?
No, I have a role. I mean, that's what I've been trying to do by highlighting. I've written articles in the Wall.
Oh, that's okay. CS. People assume that I'm HSTS. I'm not just saying that to big myself up, but a little bit.
Wall Street Journal about the dangerous denial of sex and sort of issues with gender ideology more broadly. I've been trying to just raise awareness of the problems that I see out there, because the first step was just sort of this consciousness raising effort. I think that has largely been successful, and consciousness has been raised quite a bit.
I agree.
The next step had been sort of, okay, well, now that people know the issues that are going on, well, what do we do? What are the issues? How is this happening? Oh, we'll look at WPATH. Oh, look at all these organizations that have been essentially captured by this certain ideology that is,
right,
producing all this stuff, refusing to analyze their own.
Oh, hey, Sylvia, how you doing?
Their own biases, and try to get people who are in these organizations, who we know through a lot of emails that they feel like they're being muzzled behind the scenes. So try to get people to be able to speak up and actually, hold the activists' feet to the fire about evidence-based medicine in these areas, so that they can, we can actually look at evidence rather than just ideology.
But would you not agree that there's a political project out there to basically that goes the other way? Like you can see that gender criticals have their own extremist policy project, right?
Oh, she needs some credence to the idea that there are people that genuinely want to like stop trans from existing, which generally TRAs will say that anyone, even someone like this person, like this Colin Wright person, wants to get rid of all trans people. It's the same for someone like me. Like, they probably think I do as well, or I'm simping for people who do or some shit.
Right. So I guess my question is, what role do you think you have? What concrete actionable steps how do we get to, I understand, like,
oh my God, every time she starts a question, she fucking interrupts it with another question and then interrupts that question. Oh my God, stop.
I agree with your entire mission there for the trans side. Over on the gender critical.
You ever get those people that like, they can never finish a sentence? It's like, oh, well, what I think is that maybe we should, well, you know, like, what I'm saying is, you know, like, just finish a sentence. My God.
Critical side. What are the steps you think people like you that do believe in dignity for trans people? What would your approach be?
I'm good, Sylvia. I'm watching Brianna Wu. I'm always happy when I'm watching Brianna Wu.
To kind of getting them to go, come on, like, let's not talk about a total ban here. There's no need to dehumanize people. Like,
dehumanize people? How? Why does she always do this? This is a huge thing that we need to get away from, is this weird vague language where it's like, well, you're dehumanizing trans people, like you're being transphobic, like never describing an action or something that's actually happened, describing your opinion on that, describing your perception of it. Because we've decided, oh, well, you know, trans perspectives have to be like centered in this debate, when a lot of trans perspectives are fucking mental. What's my answer on the hypothetical gender dysphoria cure pill? Like, would I take it or would I not? If it was now, I wouldn't, because I'm with someone I love and my life's not too bad. It's not perfect, but it's not too bad. Is Dollcast Brianna's channel? It's one of them. She has a podcast.
We all need like respect here. What role do you think you have to play in calming that down?
Yeah, I mean, I try to do that a lot, and I mean, I get attacked from the GC ultras. That's what they're calling themselves a lot now. And I've had to go on massive blocking sprees because I did like a podcast with.
Wait, I thought only trans people were harassed. What the fuck?
Julia Malott, and then they just post pictures. It's just like, oh, Colin and his pet.
If an AGP trans woman has their testicles removed and sex drive gets nuked, so they still AGP. Yeah, often they describe it as like, it's like an erotic relationship at first, and then often becomes more romantic, I think. I'm drawing on my memory of Ray Alex Williams videos. I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to AGP. Like, you have to understand, I think it has credence. I think there's AGPs out there, but it's still just another theory. I think it's got more validity to it than gender identity theory, which I think is basically complete bullshit that we invented so that we can have a flattering description of what being trans is. Maybe there isn't a flattering description. Maybe we're all just fucking degenerate freaks. I'm personally fine with that. I don't care. I'm like visibly weird anyway, so.
Troons or whatever, they just go, you know, they just, I'm friends with Sarah Higdon, and then I just get things that's like, oh, like Colin is this catching them all like Pokemon. It's just ridiculous. And they think that, they go hard against me, and I just try to say, no, these are people who are my friends, and I treat them as individuals because that's how I treat all my friends. I just try to, I guess, live as the example of someone who shows people dignity based on being an individual, and I hope others do the same. And if I see people attacking a trans woman just because they're trans or something out in public, I push back against that. I mean, I think I try to shame people on that side too, because I don't think
medication definitely can help people. Like, I took a few different things for like depression and anxiety. When I started taking venlafaxine, what I found was I was much less anxious about doing things like making calls for my job, because I worked in a call center. Like, it was more taking calls than making them, but it definitely has some effect. Like, it doesn't mean that the science is perfect or anything, you know. Oh, hi, Petunia. I haven't seen you for a while. Hope you're good.
We should be, shaming anyone for just expressing themselves in the public and, presenting themselves as the opposite sex or whatever. I mean, I just treat people as individuals, and I have a lot of trans friends, and I love them all. And
wanted to transition and likes who she is. Yeah, I mean, for me, it would depend where my life's at, because that's what matters to me, I guess. Whether I'm trans or not doesn't matter as much as am I happy, for example. And if there's a version of me that could be happy and male, then fair enough, I guess. But hey.
And I don't.
Yeah. I consider you a friend. Yeah. I do. I know it's going to piss people Definitely. Off, but I like you a lot. No, I hear you. So it's less.
Oh, you're on mirtazapine. I hated mirtazapine. And it made me gain weight as well. Like, I felt hungry so much more often. I put on a couple of stone, I think. I had a picture on my old phone. I don't think I can access it, unfortunately. But I actually literally look fat. It's like the one time. Oh, also, Kelly, you'll get used to Sam. He has strong views.
Less of a public policy solution and more.
Yeah, I don't know if that can be done with policy. I mean, people can be assholes. I don't know how you legislate against assholes. It's just.
Well, I mean, but it's the W path. Like, that's what it comes back to me. Like, what are the standards that we are applying to this? That's like a.
Could I have had a happy life as a man? Yeah, possibly. Sure. If you'd have asked me that when I was younger, I'd have said no. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm lucky in the sense that I didn't want kids anyway. And whatever I've dealt with and whatever I've come to terms with, which is a lot of things, I still feel that kind of drive to, like, feminize myself. You know what I mean? A male happy version of you would gamble all your funds. Hey, maybe. Maybe I'd win big.
Very concrete public policy play that I want to do there. So I don't know. I think there's I wish there was a way to, how can I say this? I find it so consistently frustrating because there are reasonable TERFs and gender criticals. I talk to them every day and they're like, look, they're exactly like you. They're like, I don't want trans women in sports. I have no issue with someone like getting married and having a life and using the bathroom, right? That's just a different thing. I'm talking about these, this, I don't want to see a penis in a locker room. And I really.
Oh my God, the most blocked blue skies. And Brianna Wu is number 1. Is that true? I don't know how that would work. I don't know how they'd find that kind of thing out. Alejandra Caraballo. I suppose she's a pathetic fucking loser, so it makes sense that she's led a campaign against another pathetic loser on Blue Sky. Like, what the fuck? Brianna Wu. That's kind of funny. If I wasn't FTM, would that have felt good? I have no idea.
I wish there was a space to elevate those voices at the public policy level, because I think if people like me are sitting down with.
Yeah, I think the trans brains thing, it'd be nice, but I don't see it happening. And like most of the changes that people observe in a trans brain, it's usually like post HRT. So it's kind of, this is kind of something you did, A lot of trans people think she's terrifying and must be mass blocked. A lot of trans people think everything's terrifying. Plenty of trans people think I'm probably terrifying. I'm a red name, I think, on Twitter, which I wear with pride,
With people like you and them, I think that's where this insanity ends, in my view.
I agree. That's why I like to come on shows like this, and I'll still continue talking to trans people on their shows and try to just be the example, I guess, best I can.
Amazing.
Right. It's so hard to do, but I think that's like so necessary that some people are able to do that just to turn down the temperature.
Trying to debate John is like trying catching a nail. Yeah, I've seen the Queeman debate with her, and it's like painful. Like it like riles me up. Like they distribute block lists as pathetic. Yeah, these people are pathetic. Yeah. I don't know. I don't like Brianna Wu, but like Alejandra Caraballo is the exact kind of person I expect to be like responsible for someone like this, because who the fuck cares? Who cares about blocking someone on Blue Sky? I don't even know who half these people are, like TaylorSwift.com. Like, I don't know what most of these are.
and actually get to like a more reasonable conversation. Because like at the end of the day, like maybe I do think that there should be some pathway for adolescent transition. If it's like 16.
Brianna woos, maybe. I don't know. You're like essentializing very hard. Not just put them on lithium or risperidone when they do strange things. That's not what most mental health care looks like, just so you know.
With rigorous standards, but I've like only come to that conclusion through analyzing.
Yeah, the post-careful thing was interesting. The kind of shit she says, I can't remember much of it. Maybe I should play it on stream sometime. I've got plenty of time to watch plenty of Wu-Tent, you know what I mean? So yeah, like she was crazy in that one. It's like she needed like convincing that Keffels is a bad person. Like, oh, okay.
And like raising flags about the evidence. And a lot of trans people are not willing to like have that conversation with.
Listen, John Walker Flint is definitely not Brianna Wu's old name. Definitely not at all.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. Because I'm like, a lot of this evidence is kind of shaky. Like,
yeah, but are they just doing something strange? Like some of them probably do extremely serious things or like hurt themselves or hurt others, you know?
Maybe we need to reevaluate and do all these things. And they just like write me off as like a crazy person. And then I've also tried to talk to like gender critical and turfy people. And I've had them just like totally be like, it's cliche, but like just very like hateful, just like.
Tell Charlie hi and a great weekend.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Totally writing me off because of my identity. Yeah. And that's frustrating because I feel like just no one is being benefited from this. And it like breaks my heart to hear these like detransition stories and to see how people are failed by doctors. And I just don't want that to happen. And at the same time, I want for like doctors to be able to make actual decisions based on evidence. And it feels like there's so little opportunity to just like talk to reasonable people who agree with that.
Yeah. Do you think WPATH needs to just, do you think we need to have people in the middle building a new WPATH? Because that's almost where I am. Your own organization has written plenty about the WPATH files when they came out. Yeah. Extremely disturbing stuff. And
I thought the WPATH files were just forum posts. That's what Assigned Media said. Fuck Assigned Media, by the way. Terrible publication. If you're the person that writes it and you're listening right now, actually fuck you. You're a terrible person. I don't even care.
And, I remember when I transitioned on the Benjamins, and I remember when WPATH started, and I was like, oh, this is a really good thing. This is going to standardize this and pursue more science. And I think it's...
Yeah, we just assume every trans initiative is good. Oh yeah, this will be great. Can't see anything wrong with this. I'll defend this with my life, even though I know almost nothing about it. I'm not a fan of WPATH. I know one person in WPATH who's kind of sound, and that's about it. Do you think...
It's unfortunately true that it's a fringe left progressive organization.
I'd hope that the collapse of transgender bollocks would lead to a general examine of psychiatry, that people would ask what the hell's field of medicine is doing. I think that's still coming, to be honest. I think more of that is going to start coming up, and I'm probably going to end up looking into it more myself. I think the difference between us is you're happy to make very strong statements when I'm not, because I don't know as much. I don't know.
There's more about advocacy for a leftist point of view than it is pursuing science. I mean, do you think that just needs to be rebooted? Do you think like it needs to be ignored? Like, what is the process to get better medical safeguarding in the loop again?
How about laws against child transition? Oh wait, we've already been fucking talking about this. Yeah, Colin Wright. Brianna's been... I don't even know. She made a single good argument. Like, there's been one or two things that I'm like, yeah, I guess that's true. Anyway.
Good question.
Yeah, I think WPATH is a lost cause. Honestly, yeah. I don't see a pathway to reform, just given how, from the bottom to the top. I mean, there might be some individuals in the fringes that disagree, but they have no power. And as soon as anyone says anything from within, they just get shouted out and exiled from the organization. Yeah. It's as close to total ideological capture, I think, as you can possibly get within these things. I mean, they took out like age limits, and they put in a chapter on eunuchs in their most recent standards of care.
Awesome. Eunuch is a fetish. Just so people know.
Hey Newman, that's how all of these fucking weird groups work. The loudest ones are always the craziest ones. So it's kind of, what do you do?
Oh, yeah, it is. So it's, yes.
I mean, if they could do that and like not bat an eye and just be like, why wouldn't we have a chapter on eunuchs? It just shows the degree, how far gone they are. So I mean, I would hope that this type of medicine just takes place under the umbrella of the medical organizations we already have, APA, Endocrine Society, things like that. I don't know if we need a specific organization, because it just turns into like an activist advocacy organization that departs from.
There's a point. Like, do we need a W path? Like, you'd think something like W path. One of the big things would be like kind of guaranteeing some kind of standardization and some kind of shared sort of standards. I just said the same thing twice. I don't fucking give a shit. And that hasn't played out. Like, standardization is a fucking huge problem. You know what I mean? Did you see she's refused point blank to even speak to Meghan Murphy, but is willing to just talk to biological males that hate her existence? The interesting thing is, someone like this, you can imagine her essentializing him as like invalidating trans women. They had this conversation after the conversation before where she shat on that Ray Alex Williams guy for basically no reason for invalidating trans women. I don't know what the fuck her standards are. It's so strange.
Evidence, because, you know, it's...
And yeah, she probably will never talk to women about this because she'd have to acknowledge there's a difference between her and like the woman.
Whatever the evidence happens to say, well, they're representing people who want access, not necessarily, you know, what's the best evidence-based medical care that's out there.
I hope this isn't an overshare, but I have such a love-hate relationship with Marcy Bowers, who did my vaginoplasty, because on one hand, like, she did something that made my life so much better, like so incredibly much better, made it possible for me to get married and date straight men and have a really good life. I'm so...
Date straight men, is that the goal? This guy's a leftist ally. Fair enough.
I saw the way that she fought at the hospital to get her trans patients care, and I'm so personally thankful for her. But then on the other, I've seen the way she's overseen the fall of this institution that had so much potential to make my life better and everyone else's.
Oh, thank you.
His life better, and she's just a failed leader, and I'm so torn about this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
That's how I feel too. Where like I just see people who, you know, claim to be like supporting us, and I think whenever these people, whether they be in the Democratic Party or the medical establishment, whenever they stand by like bad science or refuse to engage with reality, that is such like a poison pill. And eventually that is going to come and wreak havoc, because you cannot win against reality. And the larger the gap between ideology and reality, the harder that snap will be when eventually things come crashing together. And so I just don't think there's any way through this that doesn't involve a totally honest discussion. And it's frustrating for sure.
Her husband's not straight. Well, she's dating a trans man, so a trans woman, should I say. So, easier to date straight men. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Depends how open people are about being trans. Oh wait, Brianna never used to say she was trans, even though everyone knew, I feel. Yeah, I don't know. Let's not follow that. Let's not follow that line of logic.
Yeah, that's why we're here. That's why we're here with you, Colin. Reality's Last Stand. I mean, You've been on that project for a while, and it's like, it's true. It's interesting, all the groups that caught up in it. And honestly, to me, that GenSpect is the result, direct result almost, of WPath failing. I mean, that's something we're all seeing here. And there's been
Oh, no. Frank is cis, as far as I know. I misspoke. I meant he's dating a trans woman.
controversy after controversy. And I just hope that we can come to a stance that shows the medical efficacy of transition for the right individuals while protecting the vulnerable and the people who aren't the right individuals. If there was one thing I took away from the GenSpec conference, it was the voices of those detransitioners that have been harmed by this. And it's like, we got to pay attention to them, and we got to understand the limits of really gender care at all, and just understand that we got to be balanced and nuanced in how we approach this and be data driven. And that's something I've always personally appreciated with your platform, because I do see you really diving in to the data as opposed to the ideology.
Fourth time lucky. It said it reconnected. So I saw it happen and like panicked, and I was like, oh, okay, it's good. And then it wasn't good, I guess. I would say reload the stream, but I don't know who's still on the old version. Okay, here we go. Hi. Fuck me, I don't know what's going on today. I got like 2 hours that time though, so hey. But listen, if this is censorship, then that's just making me more determined. I've got like 15 minutes left, so it's gonna happen regardless, you know what I mean? It's gonna happen. It's gonna be a fucking bitch to stick all this shit together when normally I can just take a big section out, but hey, you know, white people problems. Censored because I'm British. Yes, true. Anti-colonials coming after me again. Fucking Antifa. I just have to watch out for spies now and then. I don't know how to tell people that are still watching it buffer to like restart the stream. Like hit refresh or something. Okay, there we go. It's there. We're just gonna keep going. People will pick up. It's not like we're missing any riveting fucking thing. For God's sake, what happened? My OBS keeps disconnecting. It's like the 4th time today. I reset like everything and like redid the stream key, should I say, and everything. And it worked for ages, and now it's crapped out again. Anyway.
Working in.
I've always personally appreciated with your platform, because I do see you really diving in to the data as opposed to the ideology.
So speaking of science, I wanted to give you an option. My husband has a PhD in bacterial genetics and spent, I believe, over 25 years working in drug development. And we thought it would be fun to make sure we're ending the show with some good vibes to have him come in and give you a little bit of a game show. So are you up for that at all?
Brianna Wu saying good vibes is very... hello, how do you do, fellow kids? Well, this whole take Colin Wright out of the equation, and that's this whole like scene. They look like if you add their ages up, they'll be around hers. Conspiracy to get more likes. Yes. I'm just clicking the stop stream button randomly for no reason today. I don't normally do it. I'm just trying it today.
Oh God, am I going to be quizzed on biology right now? Oh my God.
Biology.
I've been out of the field for a little while, but yeah, let's do it. Hopefully they're more evolution oriented.
Wait. Oh my God. Hang on. Hang on. How do I put myself somewhere where like I don't wanna Callie, I'll be Callie. No one needs Callie. Sorry, Callie. You're really not the worst part of this show or anything. But here we go. It's Frank.
Oh God.
Hi there. Hi.
It's being sprung on here.
Hi, Dr. Wright. Hi. My name is Dr. Frank Wu. I'm Brianna's husband, and I would like to say hello to you.
Is he gay? He's very gay, isn't he? Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly. Frank Wu is so great. Well, he's here.
Scientist to scientist. So as Brianna mentioned, I have a PhD in molecular biology. You have a PhD in social insects and arthropods, which I find fascinating. And sometime we should just sit down and just.
But there are not enough males on this here. Can't believe the mainstream media tried to tell me this was a trans man. You know what? If someone told me he was a trans man, I'd believe it. I would 100% believe it.
Talk about that stuff because that's awesome.
Yeah. I love talking about that stuff. I never get to anymore. So
I'm writing a science fiction, a military science fiction novel about humans versus a society of killer space centipedes. So, social arthropods is anyway. We're off topic.
Wait, a man that's dating a male seems gay? Odd.
Anyway, so your PhD is from UC Santa Barbara. Go Gauchos. Mine is from University of Wisconsin. Go Badgers. We have a bye week this week.
I would like to think he knows what and who he is married to, because I think it's been quite a long time.
And if you are game to be in a little game, I would like to invite you to a brand new segment of Dollcast that I would like to call Science Blinded by Science.
I just wonder, admittedly based on a very limited amount of information, these two, him and Brianna talking, I feel like, how do either of them get in a word edgeways, Yes, this is Brianna's husband.
I'm down.
Do you see what I have to deal with all the time?
This is what you deal with off camera.
I regret transition entirely. I take it all back.
I have no idea what happened in the show before I showed up. I assume this is like a...
Yes.
I'm just continuing the happy, joyful energy.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
So, actually, Skylar, if you would like to be volunteered to be scorekeeper, it'll be really easy. I will ask progressively harder questions. Okay. And as Dr. Wright answers them, he will get progressively more and more points and thereby glory and honor. All right, question number 1. Proteins include enzymes. 80% of muscles are muscle mass is protein. Proteins are made of amino acids. Question number 1 for Dr. Wright. Okay. What is the amino acid represented by the single letter abbreviation R? And if you need a hint, I can give it to you. R. Amino acid R.
The pirate acid.
I don't know.
It is. I'm asking about.
Given me saying this, I think there's a tiny proportion of heterosexual males who are contented with dating trans women because they're the hottest looking women they expect to get. Hey, that's like my partner. She used to date fat chicks and then she graduated onto trannies. But hey, she somehow deluded herself the same thing about me. So it's amazing. Yeah. I'm okay with it. Listen, I'm a trans lesbian who isn't dating another trans person.
Arginine.
Yes! Oh my God!
There we go.
Because I know one of your papers is on the personality of groups of organisms as opposed to individual, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by the personality of wasps?
Yeah, tell us more about
so this is actually what part of my PhD specifically was on spiders, but I was doing 2 PhDs side by side, and so whichever one was best was going to be my dissertation.
I'm going to give.
Sorry, I'm not that interested by this bit. I just want to see what they kind of wrap it up with.
Him an extra 15 points for that because that was just
oh no, now I don't know what score he's gonna get. Shit,
that was just fascinating.
We learned.
How many points is that, Skylar?
Oh gosh, let me sum that up.
Have we been keeping track?
I have
12,
57 points.
57.
Do I get many bald guys? I don't really get bald guys. No, I mean, I don't really leave my house, so I don't really get people hitting on me or anything at all. You promise good vibes. I mean, these are vibes that someone might consider good. They're making him look really unqualified. Oof.
brand new
Do you think maybe they like selected him very specifically?
record
Hell
for
yes.
our segment, Science, Blinded by Science, which is all about the joy and wonder and diversity and like and exceptions to rules and like all sorts of like complications that you wouldn't expect in science and biology.
I hope you guys have other scientists on so I can see how I measure up there.
I've never seen
Yeah, maybe.
57 before. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's truly astounding. Very
Good job, Frank.
Proud of that.
That's awesome.
And then above on top, we can see Woolando, which is our little Lego city. And yeah, well, I wanted an interesting zoom back.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you everybody for having me. Thank you, Dr. Wright.
Thank you so much. I'm going to get dunked on by people for flubbing the central dog.
We'll edit all the ones you missed out.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, science is full of wonder, complications, exceptions, and glory and funness. So anyway,
all right,
peace.
bye, Frank.
Thanks, Frank. You have a very entertaining home life. You must.
He's crazy. He's
quite
wild.
a character. Luckily,
He's willing to marry a trans woman, so you can see the adventurous spirit that led to that.
Sweet. Yeah.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
I love him. I think he's good.
He's fun.
Thank you, Colin.
Yeah,
Thank you, Colin, for coming on. So,
yeah. No, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad to be here. I had messages.
Isn't one biased scientist the quota for the show? Probably. She can go back to just shitting on anyone that thinks differently to her next week, I guess. Frank didn't know the energy he was walking into.
Just from people, they're like, you're going to go on there. It's going to be I don't know. They're going to try to get you on stuff and it's going to be nothing but hostile, but this was fantastic.
Well, I mean, Brianna was like doing that a bit. Like the kind of emotional argument she was using. You know? Oh, happy Thanksgiving to you too.
No.
Yeah, but it's like, I know some of the people on there.
Listen, there's nothing actually wrong with dating a trans person. It depends who it is, you know what I mean? There's some women are better than others, some trans women are better than others. It just is how it is.
It's fine. We can talk.
I was definitely trying to find like things we could disagree on.
Yes.
yeah.
I was like, oh God, I'm going to end up agreeing with everything.
Well, I know some of your viewers on Twitter. They were saying I was like basically
what Taftage means. Oh God, my fans are gonna fucking crucify me.
The devil. So I hope after watching this,
I would uncover him, but it's almost finished.
I'm a little more humanized to them. That I'm not your enemy. At least I hope. So,
12-year-old boy, that's Taftage. He's a porn star, I think.
I can say this. Look, you've always gendered me correctly. You've been
That's what it is.
So,
I can say this. Look, you've always gendered me correctly.
That's what she cares about more than anything. It's just being called a woman while it's pretending not to be. Like, gendered me correctly.
At least I hope. So,
I can say this. Look, you've always gendered me correctly. You've been totally nice to me in back channel. I mean, yeah, I don't think you're the enemy. I think we share an assessment on the dangers of what I think you call woke ideology. 100% like it's not serving anyone. And, I'm not with you on a total ban for minors, but I think other than that, there's a lot of shared energy. I think at the end of the day, all of us want the same thing here. And there's a better system for trans people, minors and adults to transition under. I think all of us agree this highly politicized system is serving no one.
Yeah, and I think all of your
Yep, and then she'll continue politicizing it. Anyway, there we go. Wasn't that amazing? Isn't your brain just so nice and numb now?